what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Law and Order, the show where we cover legal perspectives of the ongoing administration and politics, and now increasingly get into arguments with left wingers trying to enforce radical tyranny on it. I'm your non lawyer host, Rob Noerrdor, and my attorney friend, Ryan Mullally. Ryan, how are you doing this fine Monday?
It's good to see you, Rob. Really good to see you. Glad to be here. I thought we had switched to just a pure call-in format based on our last episode. We're still doing a legal analysis show? I thought it was a call-in show now.
Now, listen, if we chum in someone, I'll be happy if we get one of the streamers we know on the left that wants to call in to discuss them. I don't have a problem with that. So there's been some scuttlebutt that could be the case, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, quite the popular show. We're rising. The left, not a fan of this show. Why would they be? Because right now they're the targets of the people that are trying to shatter norms and radically change the way the judicial system happens here in the States. And, before we get into the specific details, I think that this will continue to be a focus of mine and yours. And I think you're going to see it increasingly a focus of a lot of people in politics, right, left, or right, center, and maybe even some on the left, that start to wake up to the seriousness of what the Democrats are suggesting. And the packing the courts, along with all the other stuff that they're suggesting, quite literally has the ability to change any sort of judicial commentary or insight on its head. Because it would just, I don't know, I guess they could just punish the justices or add, justices. And really, I think in your line of work especially, not just as an attorney, but as an attorney, because you talk with a lot of other attorneys in this space, a lot of what you do is predicting, how do we think this case will go? I mean, this is going to throw that all in its head, maybe the least consequential impact of this, but really does just illustrate just how foreboding it will be if they get what they want here.
Yeah, well, I was talking about this last night, and the concept that I came up with was load-bearing norms. Because we talk a lot about norm violations these days, and there's been a lot of norm violations, but not all of them are load-bearing. People, I'll tell you, I don't like partisan gerrymandering. It rubs me the wrong way. I wish we weren't in a partisan gerrymandering war and that everybody was playing more fair. I prefer that personally. But do I think the country will survive a partisan gerrymandering war? Yeah, it will. It'll be fine. It will be hard-nosed. The elbows will be sharp. But that is not the sort of thing that tests the mettle of the republic. There are, though, load-bearing norms. One of them is, our fan Destiny's favorite issue, the 9-0 decision. Can a state decide that a presidential candidate is just ineligible to run unilaterally because they decided he's an insurrectionist under the 14th Amendment? That's up to them. Well, if that was the case, presidential elections would quickly become a joke. And you can easily imagine why, right? Texas is going to take Biden off the ballot. Colorado takes Trump off the ballot. The whole thing becomes chaos. It's a load-bearing norm. You really can't give states that power. Court packing in this day and age is a load-bearing norm. If one side gets to just load up the court with the most frothing at the mouth partisans and loyalists they can think of and have them amend the Constitution from the bench, it's a loophole that eats the system, and everybody knows it. And that's why people are getting so mad, Rob, about the stuff you and I have been saying, because we kind of caught them in the act. We pointed it out early, and people don't like the fact that we're pointing out what this is really all about.
Yeah, and that was the criticism of your debate with Pisco. Now, we will talk about some of the fallout from last week's interaction with Destiny, but to start with this, the debate you had with Pisco. Now, I told you this. I actually have a debate coming up with Pisco Wednesday, and the topics there's two topics. The second topic is the exact same prompt that you debated, right? The first prompt is, and I'm quoting now, Ryan did bad in the debate is the prompt, which is funny. And I know Pisco will watch this in preparation, which is fine. I don't mind. Hi, Pisco. How you doing? One of the things that's funny is I was like, I hope it doesn't get too absurd and gamey like Pisco wants to do with these topics, because hypothetically, one could argue this way. Is it not possible to do good and bad simultaneously? All I need to argue is that at least one argument of Ryan's was bad, and therefore I win this affirmative. So I'm going to go ahead and assume he means on net So were you on net good or bad? So that I'm not forced to argue some meta one argument was bad or something.
Rob, I swear to God, I will give you $100. I will give you $100 if when that topic starts, you go, "Oh yeah, I don't care about this prompt. Ryan did bad next."
Well,
I swear to you, I will give you $100.
Now, listen, I gave the game away. Again, I know he'll watch this, so I give the strategy away by this is a meta conversation. You ready? So I had a plan that I was going to come on this show today and just say, Ryan, here's my strategy, right? I'm just going to lie my ass off. I'm just going to say shit I don't believe. Everything I say is a fucking lie come Wednesday. You're not going to hear one word out of my mouth that I really believe. So I'll sit there, oh yeah, I care about norms. It's all a lie. All of it's a fucking lie. And then wait for him to be like, I heard you say on Monday's show that you were lying. And I'd say, what's the point? What's that have to do with the prompt? What does that have shit to do with anything, Disco? I'm arguing right now. All that matters is the prompt. What's it matter what I've said in the past? Right? But I'm giving away. I'm not going to do that. But I could. And then what would he reasonably say? Well, this is horseshit because you're not talking about what you really believe. Tell me more about that. That's interesting. But I will say my one bit of criticism for you is I think that it was a mistake to say, I don't give a shit about the prompt, because you did. And I think that actually you were arguing the real prompt. So yeah. I think that the way you explained it, when you later explained it, I think made sense. But to just be like, I don't give a shit about the prompt, everyone who's not really invested in paying attention much takes that as like, well, this guy's in here, you might as well have been Pisco's like, let's talk about court packing. And you're like, you cheated on your wife. Sure. What's that have to do? That's not what happened, right? Like you were talking about court packing. Your argument is quite simply this. The actual topic is the real plans that people are suggesting, including you, Pisco. The real plan you want. That's what we should be talking about,
The thing about this is, let me try to back way up. Because I talked about this a lot last night, and I don't want to do my whole lengthy diatribe, so I'll try to be brief. When we talked about John Eastman, right? You made an argument in his defense where you said like, well, isn't there technically some argument that this was like a decent legal point that Eastman made? And, shouldn't we not like be in the business of punishing lawyers for trying to make arguments for their client, this sort of thing, right? And I said, actually, I kind of think Eastman, I'm not willing to defend Eastman. I think he probably did deserve to get punished for that. And here's why. And we can disagree about this, but the reason why is the same reason I'm critical of what Pisco's doing. There's a norm there. Right? Like whether Eastman's right or wrong about the Constitution, you can't have the vice president picking the president. You just can't. You just can't. It's the end of the system, right? And what Pisco's doing is he's Trojan horsing a massive load-bearing norm violation. He's saying, my view, and I swear to God, this is Pisco's view. He supports breaking the filibuster. He supports court packing. He supports Senate expansion, i.e. court packing, which I was shocked when I researched to learn that you can do without a constitutional amendment or a supermajority, 51 vote majority, right? And then putting in a code of ethics. Now think about that. If you put all those pieces together.
Plus Graham Plattner, vote blue no matter who. Yeah. It doesn't matter the scandals. Yeah, he believes that. Yeah.
To give you the if the Republicans were going to do the same thing, right? They could say, okay, tomorrow we're going to break the filibuster. We have the votes. We're going to find a little disputed island between Mexico and Texas. We're going to put like 3 people on there. That's a state now. So we get 2 more votes in the Senate. Then we're going to put the frothing on the mouth conservatives on the court, Justice Lindell, Justice Alex Jones, this sort of thing. These are guys who might have a view on the next election, by the way. Turns out Justice Lindell thinks the Republicans did pretty well. I'm just going to guess. And then we're going to lock the Democrats out of power, effectively. Right now, this is a massive loophole. When our Constitution was written, there wasn't even judicial review. There certainly wasn't partisan court nominations. That's all Bork and afterwards. It's a loophole in the system that allows you to turn a government of checks and balances into a tyrannical tyranny of the majority in 1 or 2 steps. And Pisco's coming in and saying, well, don't you want to talk about my syllogism? And don't you want to talk about this minimal argument about whether they're going to pack the court? And my point is, no, I don't. I want to expose what's happening, because what you're doing, Pisco, is you're trying to rebrand this tyranny. You're trying to rebrand this as reciprocal court packing, reciprocal norm violation. Oh, doesn't this all sound reasonable? And then 10 years from now, when we're like, what the fuck happened to the country? How did we get here? People are going to be like, oh, well, it was just reciprocal court packing. And come on, don't you think DC deserves representation? It's all fine, guys. They'll never fucking admit it after the fact. They'll never admit it after the fact. So we have to point it out in the present moment. And that was, for me, the goal of the debate, was to reset the conversation and make it a different conversation. As to the prompt, I argued the prompt in the second half, but that was, I spent the first half doing something else because that was the thing I thought needed doing.
Remember, get your super chats in. We'll read them as long as they're TOS friendly and relevant to the show. But I think we always read all of them. Shapping Rover on your end, gifts 1 membership. Thank you so much. So, appreciate it. So, I'm not going to talk much more about that debate because obviously I have a debate about that debate and then the same topic of that debate coming up Wednesday. One thing I will say, though, that's tangentially connected to that, I think it's so funny. I'll at least give Pisco credit for this. He at least goes out there, and Destiny to some degree as well. Now, Destiny will get pissed and blacklist and all that good shit, right? Pisco's not so much that. I find at least that somewhat admirable when you're willing to debate. So many of these people behind the scenes, so Bisco agreed to debate me on this. Then there was our friend Josiah. I was like, hey, Josiah, how about me and you talk about this? Why don't you join Wick's panel? On Tuesday, I'll be on there. I'm like, nah, just me and you, huh? We could talk one-on-one on Wick's panel. I was like, nah, I don't think so. How about just me and you? You could even have Pisco moderate. I don't care. Pick who you want. Other than Wick. I don't do Wick's show. Other than that, go ahead, pick who you want. Oh, that's a shame. Now, the truth is, Josiah knows. And by the way, it's not just that I know that Josiah knows he can't debate it, and you know that, but Josiah knows it. And Pisco knows it. They all know. They all know the score. Josiah's just going to sit there and go, good job, Pisco. And, that's fine. But I wish people would admit that. There was this guy, I'm really important.
I mean, Josiah famously invented a rule that he no longer debates law against lawyers unless he has a lawyer with him.
Right. I'm no lawyer. I'll debate him.
Yeah, after I was like, hey, Josiah, let's talk about it. He's like, oh, new rule. I was like, you used to talk to me. That seems like a new rule. But anyway, I think that I suspect Josiah will not agree to sit down to have a conversation with you, Rob. I think Josiah,
he knows.
He doesn't want to get mauled like that.
It's happened in the past. He knows. He went in Destiny shows like, I was really underprepared for that. And then there's this guy, Sleepy Devo. I saw he was like, Ryan, I'll talk about court packing if you'll admit you can't handle a conversation about Trump's corruption versus Biden's Democrat corruption. I was like, I'll have that debate with you. And he's like, why weren't you on Wick's panel? What is Wick? Wick's the go-to man. Need that guy that jumps in with the mute button there, in order to have that conversation.
This is the funny thing about when your comments go crazy over a weekend, right? Where it's like, just to clarify this, I am under no fucking obligation to debate random ass prompts that people throw at me.
Yeah.
I talk shit about your take on court packing. It's like, oh, that's dumb. You want to debate it? They're like, no, let's debate this other thing. I'm like, why? I don't. I owe you nothing.
Well, and I even defend in fairness, I've defended bigger streamers like Destiny or like Hassan. Why would Hassan ever debate me? What's he have to gain by that? If he's even remotely heard of me, or you for that matter, we're way less viewers than him. So he's nothing to gain as far as an audience. And we're both pretty good debaters. And even if Hassan thinks he could win, is it worth the risk? There's really no upside. And so, someone like Destiny or Son, or on the right, someone like, Andrew Wilson now, or it used to be Sargon of Akkad, these type of guys, you can't debate literally every, two sub person on X that's like, I challenge you to an argument on any random topic. You got to pick and choose to some degree. Yeah. So I give some leeway to understand some of these bigger accounts. Who the hell am I to be like, why don't you debate me on this? They're gonna be like, who are you? So I get that. But it is funny because there are these people that run in these circles that are in all effects, our peers. They maybe have similar or slightly more or less viewers than us. And there's these sort of seminal topics. An easy topic would be, who should we vote for in the midterms, Republicans or Democrats? Fair enough. That's fair game. People should be willing to debate that. But what you see is you see a lot of people that are like outside that scope, or they want to have these very esoteric topics and stuff. And at some point you're like, okay. And that's the problem, with a lot of these left. I realized early, because I'm coming at a position from a lot of these people like Destiny as the smaller streamer, that I got to give something up. So maybe what I'm giving up is I'm doing it on some left-wing panelist show, right? Where the host is going to be some left-winger. Or maybe I'm giving up the exact topic I want. So I want to talk, like the one time I debated Destiny, I wanted to debate about the two-tier way in which we applied what an insurrection was. Destiny wanted to debate what is the definition of insurrection. So I had to agree to that in order to have the conversation I wanted, which I did. And then you see what happened. I talked what he wanted for 4.5 hours, and then he rage quit when we got to what I wanted. So I will give them that. But having said all of that, right, like it's clear where the game's at. These people.
Can I give you an analogy? Because I think it's important. Because some people, and I know I explained this at length, but some people are confused about why I did what I did in the debate with Pisco. There's a danger. Let's say you're talking to a car thief and you're at town hall, and the car thief's like, hey, we should have an open debate about whether or not we in the town should be allowed to borrow each other's cars. Like, I think that would be a great rule. We borrow each other's cars, and that way everyone can have a car access. It's totally fine. And it's going to be efficient. Let's just have a conversation about whether or not the town should have a policy about this. And you're like, it occurs to me that you're a noted car thief. And you seem to be using this debate in the town square as a Trojan horse to normalize the things that you're going to do to steal everybody's cars. And he's like, I don't want to talk about that. That's not my syllogism. Me being a car thief isn't part of the prompt. What I just want to do is have this normalizing conversation. And I think that there's a real danger in letting progressives control the language. And I think we've learned that lesson over the years, right? And I do not think we can allow the progressives to change the definition of court packing, which is what Pisco's trying to do, to change the definition of what is and is not court packing, what is and is not reciprocal, what norms are being violated, what the consequences of those norms would be. I think that they're trying to create a permission structure, a linguistic permission structure to maybe not tomorrow, but down the line, make something that's tyrannical and unjustifiable seem palatable in people's minds. And the way you convince the American electorate to reject that is not by having some clever lawyerly argument. The way you convince the American electorate to reject that is by saying, fuck you, tyrant. Like, we are not going to fucking do it. We're absolutely not going to give you tyrannical power. And if that's what you plan on doing, we're going to kick you in the dirt and laugh about it. Because like that's the American way. So I think there's this is not a linguistic fight we can afford to lose, is I guess what I would say.
And like, for me, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm an idiot. I used to like SNL back in the 90s, right? What always comes to my mind, there's this clip. I've played the clip on channel, and it immediately gets copyright struck, so I'm not going to do it. But there's this skit. It's one of my all-time favorite ones. It's called The Erlahy Boy. Have you ever seen it? It's not the most popular one, but it's Chris Farley's a dad, and Adam Sandler's like his teenage son. And it's Erlahy Boy house sitting service, right? And it starts off, and it's just Adam Sandler going, I hear you're going on vacation next month. Let me bring in your mail. I'm very reliable. I'll bring on your mail. And then it goes to Chris Farley's dad. He's like, let the boy bring in your mail. He'll be reliable. And then he's like, let me go in the house and water your cat. You need someone to do it. I'm already bringing in your mail. And then Chris Farley gets a little more animated. And then it keeps going step by step. And then at one point he's like, let me sleep in your bed while you're gone. I promise I'll wash the sheets. And Chris Farley's like, let the damn boy sleep in the bed. You're already letting him bring in the mail. And then he's like, don't make me wash the sheets. And Chris Farley's like, you fucking monster. Why would you make him? But the point is, everything's step by step, right? Let me get my toe in the door for something that seems reasonable. Let me put my foot in a little more then, and a little more, and a little more, and a little more. So we'll have this meta debate on the toe, right? And then we'll do another little meta debate, right? And each of these are with different people on different platforms, whatever. And it's trying to paint a picture to people to normalize what would be radical. And like, you can do this about all sorts of things. I believe, and this is an argument, this is the last I'll say on this, I do believe Wednesday, when I debate this, that central to my theme about whether or not you did a good job is talking about the different goals that people have entering a debate and how to determine whether someone did good or bad. I use the primary reasoning of, did they accomplish the goal they set forth? Do you feel you accomplished the goal you set forth?
I sure do.
And did a lot of people in the audience agree with it? That's what it seemed to be to me.
Seemed to, by the audience metrics, 86% of the audience agreed with what I had to say. So, I think that there's there's fights within fights and wheels within wheels. I think that the real danger and the reason I get so fired up about what Pisco's doing is that he's trying to atomize and over logic something that in his heart he has to know is tyrannical. He knows. He has to know it's tyrannical.
Well, the truth is, and this is the truth of him and all these people. I think if you could go in like what's the name of that show everyone's talking about? Is it Severance? I haven't watched it, but the plot's something like these folks work at this company during the day, and then at night, like their minds are completely erased or something, and they work there at night as well. But in other words, like, you're guaranteed the next day if your memory's erased and you wouldn't know. If Pisco would trust he was in that environment, this is what he would tell us, I think. If we're just sitting down for burgers or something, he'd be like, look, yeah, I know this is scummy and tyrannical, but Trump's just the fucking worst.
Yeah.
He's just the worst. So we have to do this because him and his supporters are so evil that we have no choice but to make sure that they can't have power. And we can no longer trust the electorate. We haven't won as much as we needed to when it came to elections. And so now we have to go outside that scope to fight evil. And why not? Wouldn't we have done that with that Austrian painter? Wouldn't we have done that with Stalin? So, hey, it is what it is. Now, they can't say that publicly, but that's the real truth. That's what they're really playing. But he knows this is tyranny. He knows it. It'd be no different. I mean, it's straight up Machiavelli. I mean, you could make the same argument for like a monarchy or a dictator. You could just be like, look, the fucking people are too stupid. Shut the fuck up. We need a leader that tells you what to do. Shut up. We're taking power. We're a dictatorship. Well, now eat that. We're good people. You're bad. That's basically it.
And just to give the audience a scope of how big a deal this is, like Trump has had some very serious problems with the Supreme Court with, for example, tariffs. They struck down his signature economic piece, right? The National Guard. They struck down his use of the National Guard. He can't use the National Guard the way he wants to anymore. Like, there's been some big losses from Trump at the Supreme Court level. Mostly wins, but some big losses that really affected him, right? Well, if the Republicans were actually as bad as people like Pisco and Josiah would have you believe, they could fix all those problems by doing exactly the same thing that Pisco and Josiah are advocating the left do. Right? Like, because the problem with what Pisco's proposing is there's no upper limit. If you have the votes to pack by 1, you have the votes to pack by 100, right? It's the same law. Like, okay, you think tariffs, that was a bad ruling? Well, why pack by 1? Pack by 30. I bet you.
I think here's what they should do. Just make every Trump voter a justice.
There you go.
Let's pack by, what would that be? 78 million.
Yeah,
78 million new Supreme Court justice. Why not? Why not? Who's to say? It's
and then the whole Constitution is just another vote, right? Like, right. I mean, this is an absurd example, but like the point is, if the Republicans were really this cutthroat and this evil and this tyrannical, as Pisco would have you believe, they have the political power to do everything he is suggesting the Democrats do right now, and they aren't doing it.
Not only are they not doing it, no one's even suggesting it in a serious way.
Like, they can't, people have been saying break the filibuster to pass the SAVE Act for months, and they're not doing it. And they're not, because like they understand that these guardrails, there are some limits there. There's some guardrails I'll concede that Republicans are willing to mess with for sure, but not these ones. And this actually does matter. And this is going to be a huge fight, because the problem now is the Carville of it. When Carville said, the Democrats should just lie. They shouldn't talk about it. They should just do it. Because now the problem is, how can let's say they come to their senses and they're like, holy shit, we shouldn't have said that.
How will we believe it?
How do I know yeah. And I think my gut is this is still an idea that's growing. Like, the influencers are talking about it, and there's a couple key Democrats who are pushing for it, but I don't think it's spread all the way through the party yet. And that's why the fight has to happen now. Like they need to lose some key votes in the midterms where this is an issue. And they're like, holy shit, like if we talk about this, we're going to get killed. We're going to get shellacked. They need to know this is a dead letter.
I agree. Now, moving off that, I do want to go back a little bit to the debate with Destiny. First thing, this is actually a real legal thing outside the scope of that. The 9-0 business. Mm-hmm. The case that we're talking about, I always forget the name of the case. Is it just Colorado v. Trump?
No, I think that's Trump v. Anderson, if I remember correctly. Okay.
But the case we're specifically talking about is when they tried to keep Trump off the ballot in Colorado. And it makes its way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court rules against it in a 9-0. And this is what Destiny called in. Now, to talk about that case just for a second, and I have a reason, but the ultimate ruling on that was very narrow. They never decided whether or not January 6th was an insurrection.
Nope.
It was, the Supreme Court literally was just basically like, you don't have the ability as a state to execute this authority. It would have to be through Congress or through some federal mechanism. It can't be through a state mechanism, correct? And that was unique to the presidency because it's a federal office. Mm-hmm. That's basically the decision, right?
Yeah, the whole question was, can Colorado implement that language from the 14th Amendment and declare that Trump is an insurrectionist through some civil mechanism, therefore taking him off the presidential ballot? And the answer is no, that it would have to be a federal mechanism, not a state mechanism.
The reason I bring this up is convince me why me, Republican, conservative, who is furious about the two-tier justice system, why we shouldn't be aggressively in every state where we've had a state representative of any metric, whether it be Hakeem Jeffries, whether it be someone in the House, the Senate, state legislator, that has paid lip service to what's going on in Newark right now. Why should we not be taking them to court to get them kicked out of office?
Yeah, so the best reason is these are federal officers you're talking about, right?
Well, not all. It could be someone at the state house, the state senate,
yeah.
Or but it also could be the federal house, the federal senate, but it is within each state, right?
I wasn't really on the commentary scene when you guys were doing all the insurrection fights back in the day. Would that I had been on some level. But like one of the great jokes of the whole thing is that Jack Smith wrote a memo about why, and in the memo about like why he charged and didn't charge Trump with various crimes. And one of the things he wrote about there is that like insurrection as a criminal offense is basically, it's almost impossible because no one's used it since like the 1900s or earlier. There's no precedent in the modern era. And eventually to get a conviction, you'd have to take it to a jury. And you'd have to say to the jury, this is specifically an insurrection rather than a riot. And it's always going to be a coin flip at best. Like it's because the truth is the legal definitions come from this bygone era, but anyone with any common sense looking at the world today would say like, well, there must be some difference between an insurrection and a riot. It can't be that if you're rioting near a courthouse that everyone is now an insurrectionist, right? Like that as a matter of like just common sense, that can't be the case. That ironically was the position that I think Destiny, they were all taking, right? Was it
right? And I say, my theory is always this: embrace the standard that they set forth, and the standard was, and I don't believe the Supreme Court admonished this: it is not necessary to have a conviction for insurrection. But the courts, without a jury, said clearly this meets the standard.
Yeah,
right. We're not criminally charging you. We're just enforcing Section 3 of the 14th to say you can't run. If a prosecutor wants to take the extra step of criminally charging you, which, by the way, I'm for, they should do that as well. But, I don't understand if I'm a right-wing state, if I'm a deep red state right now, and we have politicians in that state that are saying that, why aren't you going to these courts? Force their hand. It's what they would do. If this was right, let me ask you this.
It would have to be for state officers, though, because you can't do it to federal officers because of Anderson.
Well, I thought it said you can't do it to a federal officer is in the presidency, an office that would have the potential to be voted in other states. For example, my senator in Pennsylvania, right? Only us Pennsylvanians can vote for that senator. You and your state can't vote for it. And so therefore we have the right to have our courts decide whether or not that person has violated their oath, Section 3, etc. The presidency stands beyond that, or potentially other officers like the vice president, etc., because that's something that's... Now, I don't know the exact language of what the court ruled, but my point is, right, like, I don't see what the Democrats' argument against this could be. There is a... I'll just ask you this. You tell me in your heart of hearts, if the shoe was on the other foot, and if we saw Trump supporters on a nightly basis attacking federal officers under Joe Biden, attacking them every night, and then you saw Trump and other Republicans out there going, yes, they have a point. This is terrible. What's happening to these peaceful protesters? Are you not convinced that these sort of repercussions would come from Democrats and Democrat-controlled courts?
I think that you would, if you tried to bring this against federal officers, you would have to make the argument you just made to get around Anderson, but I think you'd probably lose. Like, okay. I think probably they'd use Anderson and they would get around it. If they were state officers and the state had an insurrection law, that might be a little bit different. I think, in fact, that'd be totally different. So that would be the way to do it. But Rob, it sounds like you're talking. I know you've been covering the riots in New Jersey recently, and I saw that you had a chat with our resident troll Owlish the other night.
Yes.
I was in stream for that. And the thing about part of the reason why insurrection doesn't get charged that often is because insurrection is very hard to prove and is a poorly defined crime, and the case law is really, really old, and nobody really knows exactly how it will play out. So it's kind of a risky prosecution. On the other hand, assaulting, resisting, or impeding federal officers, the 18 USC 111, that's very easy and very, very well developed. Now, it doesn't get you off the ballot, but like the thing about like a lot of these crimes that take place where people are, you see some officers who get bit, they get hit, et cetera, et cetera. That's pretty obviously assaulting a federal officer. But what people don't understand about 18 USC 111 is it says that anybody who forcibly assaults, resists, opposes, impedes, intimidates, or interferes with a federal officer while they're engaged in their duty, the forcibly, that just requires any quantum of bodily force. So like if the officer is trying to arrest someone and you link hands and stand in their way, you are using your body to stop them to move. You're impeding them. That satisfies forcibly under the
putting your hands on their vehicles, getting in front of their vehicles. That would be forcible.
Getting in the way of their vehicles so they can't drive, right? The thing that they do with the ICE facilities where they block the cars.
Yes.
That's forcibly. So all of these things do violate, 18 USC 111. And, you can get some serious time for under this. I mean,
1 to 8 years, right?
Yeah. You can do some serious jail time, especially if you have multiple offenses, as is often the case. Like if you think about a situation like the stuff we had in, Minnesota, like with Renee Good. It's like she was driving her car back and forth, right, blocking the officers. And then she hit the one officer when he was trying to arrest her, right? That had she survived, that could have been 2 or 3 different counts, right? So I think there's I know at least one person has been arrested and charged with 18 USC 111 now. If the riots continue, I suspect there'll be more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a clear double standard of what happened on January 6th versus what's happening here. And January 6th, they got creative. They charged everything, no matter how loose. People pushing on barricades, bam, they were charging. Now we see them literally taking the barricades and shoving officers while they're on the ground. You might see one person arrested. And I'm willing to concede there's no two apples to apples situation. Everything has nuances. And if I was trying to be as objective as possible, I would say as a singular event, things occurring on the Capitol grounds does have a tinge of more severity, right? Because there is the idea of like the actual elected leaders possibly facing threat, which does carry a seriousness slightly above the officers that are to carry out the will of the elected leaders, in this case, ICE officers, being under direct attack. But that is the only measure in which I'm willing to concede that there's any sort of increasement of badness with January 6th. In all other metrics, we continually see what's going on. The amount of violence that's occurring to officers, far more harsh on a nightly basis in places like LA, Newark, Minneapolis, all these other places where these riots have occurred. The amount of them, we're talking one versus what? Hundreds at this point, if you count the BLM plus these anti-ICE riots, the amount of monetary damage, the amount of officers injured, the amount, like all of it's just escalated. And you could not have a more diametrically opposed response at every level. And some of this is for Trump at the DOJ level, the FBI level, right? The media level, the politicians level and how they talk about it, the cultural level, how we talk about it as a culture. And I think part of it is, it sort of goes back to like this idea that Stalin, I think it was Stalin or one of his dudes that said this, like, right? Where it's like the idea of just tell the bigger lie. The biggest lie is the easiest belief. And part of what it gets to, I think, tangentially is we've just come to expect it. This is the left. This is the Democrats. This is what they're going to riot. That's what's going to happen. I talked about this a lot. Why was it when we look at June 30th, 2020, where they tried to break into the White House? Why were there more prepared officers there that night than on January 6th? You could look at Captain Sun, talk about basically it was Pelosi and company that didn't want the National Guard there. But take that out of it for a second. You want to know why? Because one of the worst kept secrets that we're gaslighting to believing the opposite's the truth is everybody knows the left's going to riot. They know it. They expect it. They knew on June 30th, 2020, left's coming to do George Floyd shit. They're going to be riots. We know it. I know it. You know it. The Democrats know it. Everybody knows it. But you're actually shocked when the right-wingers do it. You're like, holy shit, because it's very uncommon. And so I could see how if you were officers, if it's me and you and we're officers in D.C. and you're like, on one day it's like, oh, MAGA people are coming to town. You're going to be like, a bunch of dorks, you know, that are going to be yelling at CNN and shit. Or, hey, the George Floyd or anti-ICE protesters coming to town. You'd be like, get your fucking game face on. It's on. Right? They're coming to riot. And I'm sick and tired of us at every single level allowing this two-tier system to occur because we've just learned to accept, like, this is just it. It's baked into the cake. This is the left. So for me, a long-winded rant there to get to this, it convinced me why we shouldn't have the largest FBI task force in history to throw the book at every single one of these people, to take their digital communications, to see if they had any communications with any Democrats in office, to completely investigate them, to hire a television producer, to do a fucking committee that's staffed with only hardcore Republicans and John Fetterman, just like the Adam Kissinger of his side, right? Staff them, put it on television, burn evidence afterwards to the people. Why shouldn't we be doing that? What is the reason not to make a spectacle of this and punish these people to the exact same extent that they did to the January 6th people?
Yeah, I can give you one good pragmatic reason, but I do actually think that from the footage I've seen, I've only seen one name for someone who's been arrested and charged. There should be more than one based off the stuff I was seeing on the footage, right? Like, I saw at least 2 or 3 people holding shields and charging at officers, right? So it's like that's pretty clearly a federal crime. So but setting that aside, the one thing that was really different between New Jersey and Minnesota, I don't think it was good enough, but it was a step in the right direction. And this does go back to the thing you were talking about with Alish. At least in New Jersey, the governor deployed stadies to create the protest zone and to try to keep people inside. Now,
4 days later.
Didn't work 4 days late. But in Minnesota, and in LA, what we saw is that the federal government, when ICE is on the ground, they can't enforce traffic laws, right? They can only enforce federal law in most states. There's some places have exceptions, but in most states. So like think about Renee Good, right? What's the thing that really could have saved her life?
She was arrested by local police.
Yes. If Minnesota had traffic cops with ICE who were like, hey, you can't park your car in the middle of a street, come with us, right? That diffuses the whole situation. But because the federal officers can only enforce federal law, they're now arresting her for the felony of obstruction, and she tries to escape. And and the whole situation escalates. So I do appreciate, and I do want to shout out that better late than never, at least the New Jersey governor is doing something. But yeah, for the people who are charging at ICE officers, at hitting them, throwing tear gas back at them, this sort of thing, I don't see how that's not a crime. It's an obvious felony. So hopefully there'll be more than one prosecution. Because the thing is, Rob, I don't know that you need to have a committee, but even if you just prosecute 2% of the people, I'm not talking like sweeping. I'm talking 2%. Like, you know those idiots who glue their hands to the fucking art in museums? Mm-hmm. If 2% of those idiot kids, so we're talking like 3 kids, got like 15 years in jail, I think that whole shit stops. right?
I don't
Like,
know.
because
The premise is true.
Yeah.
But I don't know that 2% is enough, because I think enough of these people are like mentally ill or LARPers or true believers that they'll roll the dice. We get to be heroes and do whatever we want. We only have a 2% chance of ever facing consequence. I don't know. I think I'll still get out there and do it. I think that, like, for me, here's the thing, right? Like, for all of the, like, frustrations that we see of the left, of the reasons they need to pack the court and stuff, one of the things that's unbelievably insane to me, and Scott Adams talked about it a lot, is the theory that we're watching two different movies. Right? We're both looking at the same thing, but because of our bias and our context, we're seeing completely opposite things. How can it be? One side is objectively wrong. I think that I've seen a two-tiered system that has been grotesquely anti-Trump supporter, anti-Republican, and my opponents see it the exact opposite. That all of this has been so blatantly pro-Trump, pro-Trump supporters, and I just don't know how. Like, this is neither here nor there, but I did this thing once where I was doing Discord invasions, and I get onto this Discord, and there's like 10 or 11 people I'm talking to. They're all very polite, but they were lefties, and I think socialists, at least a couple of them. And we started talking about bias in media, and they're like, I agree. And I was like, so it makes it, and they were like, the media far too biased for Trump. Far too biased. And I was like, well, like Fox News, talk radio. No, like CNN, New York Times, Washington Post. Those are pro-Trump rags, according to these people. And like, I told them as I was leaving, they were polite, they talked to me, and I was like, I don't know what fruitful conversation we could have from this point on. I just don't know. If I pointed to, like, if we went back through every week's New York Times Sunday edition for like the past 10 years, and we tallied up the anti-Trump story versus the pro-Trump stories, would that be enough? They're like, oh, it would be almost all pro-Trump. And you just, that's the way I'm looking at this stuff. And so for me, I think that one thing we agree with, me and the left, and I think you agree with this, and a lot of people that think about this too, is the importance of having a system that we can trust. On this show, we talk about you have to have a judiciary you trust. You have to have law enforcement that you trust. You have to have a legislative branch that we trust. An executive branch. Why would I ever, if the solution becomes, let's arrest 2% of these when they went after 95% of January 6ers, why would I ever be satisfied or trust that? Why should I? Why should I not expect the exact same standards that were meted out on my fellow supporters? Why shouldn't the exact same? Leave a president down the line, pardon them 4 years after they spend the time in fucking solitary confinement. How about that? That seems totally fair to me. I don't understand why that's bad. Why a reciprocal, this isn't going beyond it. But even though I think these situations are worse than what happened January 6th, they're clearly breaking the law. We know they're going to do it every night. It would be easy to get enough law enforcement to kettle them in and throw every one of these motherfuckers in prison for the maximum like they did January 6th. Now, I know a jury's going to be sympathetic. I know that all these pro bono lawyers are going to come, but at least make the effort. I'm so frustrated because what I see and what a bunch of people like me see is it's a fucking joke. We all know that the left could come beat our ass and riot and do whatever the fuck they want, and there'll be a slap on the wrist. And if we ever get uppity even once, they're going to break down our door and ruin our life. And that's it. Why should we have to accept that?
Yeah, I got a kind of cheeky answer, but you're not going to like it. Trump's lawyers are all tied up to an immigration shit. They're all tied up to an immigration shit. He doesn't even have enough people to do the immigration cases that he's trying to do. So the answer is he doesn't I don't think has the manpower to do massive January 6th style prosecution campaigns right now. I think they do have a shortage of legal talent for that. But beyond the practicality, I think that honestly there's a sane middle ground there that I think is worth talking about. Because like the thing about January 6th is I think everybody should agree a lot of those prosecutions were symbolic, right? There were like, even if you're going to grant that there are some people there who really should have been prosecuted, then there would also be some people who got prosecuted who were on the lower end of the offensiveness, right? And they went after everybody. And to the point that you're making, Rob, as I understand it, you're saying, well, in this riot scenario, they're only prosecuting the worst guy. And only that one, right? So how come they're not prosecuting further down the line? And I actually what I agree with you about is like, I don't think one guy is sufficient for deterrence. It's not enough, right? Now, do I think you need to have like hearings about this? You know, I don't think probably not. But I do think what you should do is you should roll up the ones who you have the slam dunk cases against. Like you know, the three idiots who were holding the barrier and they were using it like a shield to bash law enforcement. Okay. It's hard to imagine you couldn't get a conviction based off that video alone. Like, you know, like, okay, you're assaulting a law enforcement officer on camera. Oh, there we go. We got you. Set up the prosecution and then see if you can roll them. Like, did anyone tell you to be there? Were there any communications networks? Let's get your phone. Like, we could cut you a deal. Like, get a handful of them and then start like a real honest to God investigation. Now, by the way, I don't know that they're not doing that. It is possible they're doing that right now behind closed doors and just not talking about it. And that would be in a real investigation, like not like political theater. That would be the correct thing to do. You wouldn't broadcast to the world about your investigation. You would just do the investigation, right? So hopefully they are doing this, and hopefully they actually are looking into this and seeing if there's organizers or ringleaders or networkers. I don't think they need to have public J6 style hearings to accomplish that goal. I will be disappointed. I will agree with you, Rob. Like, if they're not doing anything, if they're twiddling their thumbs and saying like, okay, we're gonna prosecute this one guy and that's it. I don't think that would be sufficient.
I think that I agree with what you're suggesting would be better, and it could be happening, right? Like, for example, we heard scuttlebutt about the Telegram channels that were being used in Minneapolis, right? Like, maybe they're still sitting on that, and you know, strategically, if you're doing something like that, it probably takes. I don't know that RICO is the exact framework they would use, but sort of a large network of people that are financing things probably takes you a while to button up something like that, right? Yeah. It's not just like, hey, we could look into this Wednesday and by Saturday we could, you know, bring the hammer down. So that could be. What I'll say though is,
and you got to set it up, right? Like, you arrest the guy, you charge him with the easy one. You hit a cop. We have it on video.
Right.
You charge him, and then you start saying, hey, you want to make this go away? You want to do 20 years? We got you on video. You want to do time, or you want to give us something, right? So like they can be doing both at the same time. But sorry, I interrupted you.
No. And I think that that's certainly, if that's occurring, I don't know if it is, but if that was occurring, that's certainly better than we've seen the status quo. But I'm a happy person. And this will make sense in a second. I have a wife, I have a son. I really like my life. I really care about my country. I believe all the things I say on here, but I have the advantage of shutting what they colloquially call touching grass. I'm very lucky, and I know you are as well, Ryan. Like I think we're happy people, so I can shut this off. You know, I turn the stream off at the end of the night. I wake up tomorrow. I'm going to go to the playground with my son. It'll be great, right? But there's a lot of people that share my dissatisfaction that don't have that, and they're getting pissed. They're getting real fucking pissed. And I don't know how long you can tell these people, sorry, you just got to eat shit. You got to accept the double standard. If the left comes into power for 8 years and they break in your door because you're pro-life and throw you in prison, your friends aren't allowed to protest that. They'll throw every one of those motherfuckers in prison, and you're just going to have to eat it. And all of society's going to say you're evil, and you just got to take it. But when they do it, when they riot and they beat the shit out of people on a nightly basis, you just have to put your head down and go, I accept that. Only 1 or 2 people will be punished for that, and I accept that. And I don't know if this continues for year after year after year. I don't know how the country survives this. I don't know how this doesn't create a group. I know this is outside the scope of what we talk about in this show, but they just released the body cam footage of that poor gentleman, Nowak, that was killed by a Sikh in the United Kingdom. He was stabbed by a Sikh with his ceremonial dagger, and the cops arrested him. And it's brutal. This man's sitting there bleeding out, begging that he can't breathe, that he's been stabbed over and over. Cops handcuff him because all it took was one word: racism. I don't know how countries survive this double standard much longer. I just don't know. And so for me, I would implore the Trump administration, you better start fighting fire. I'm not suggesting I'm not pack the courts type guy. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying take the legal framework that has been outlined and accepted by every major left-wing person in this country and use the exact same standard that they sought to use on you against them and their people. I can't see a good reason why not to. And the less it happens, the more the lesson is we're allowed to riot and they'll get away with it. And I know, and I think you know this, the Democrats are like, get out there and riot. I hope one of you die so that we could have a martyr like Renee Good, like Alex Preddy, and they'll get it. They keep setting up the situation with violent confrontations with ICE, which will inevitably lead to a federal officer either legitimately or illegitimately. It won't matter. Look at Renee Good and Alex Preddy, and the differences didn't matter. Both were, the feds murdered them. I don't know how we stop it unless we just start putting our foot down and saying, no, fuck you. You all go to prison. That's the standard that was outlined. And if a Democrat wants to come in and pardon you, fine. That's the system we have. But you're all going to jail. And I don't buy also the argument, well, they just don't have enough people because they're enforcing ICE. Take a fucking week off and send these people to Newark and arrest all these motherfuckers and then let them languish like they did the January 6th people. We'll get to your case when we get to it. Ask for extensions because there's so many people that were forced to be arrested that they're having time to process them all. That's what I would do. You know,
yeah, so. I mean, I think again, I get the feel like the need for karmic justice or righting the scales or whatever the kind of the cycle there is, but I don't know. I guess this is the confusion on my part, and I will see how the administration handles this. And I haven't watched as much footage as you did. I saw you were watching it like for a few hours. So I think you've
3 nights in a row. Yeah.
Yeah. You've seen a lot of it. I've only seen like 15 minutes. In the 15 minutes I saw like 8 or 9 clear felonies, right? Like on video, slam dunk, like, oh yeah, that's a felony. That's a felony. That's a felony. That's a felony. And that was 15 minutes. Right. So I just don't think they need to do some like deep dragnet thing in order to get like a bunch of people charged and arrested. Right now, will they? Is an interesting question. Right now, do you know how many people they arrested? I know it was at least one, but I got that one name. I don't know if there's more than one.
Over the past, they've announced like 4 or 5 over the 4 or 5 days of rioting. So like you hear, we arrested 2 people last night. We arrested 1. Last night, they declared an unlawful assembly, which I believe is the 2nd night in a row. And they actually did kettle people in, and they arrested like 2 busloads of people. So maybe 50 to 60 last night. Now, the question is, like, is that a felony? I don't know the specific. It's a misdemeanor to be. I mean, a lot of people got charged with the Capitol for trespassing.
Yeah. So the thing about the Capitol that's so different is that because it's DC, you have like full federal law over everything. Like all the crimes are federal crimes in DC. Whereas, in New Jersey, if you wanted to charge like trespassing, like not on like maybe if you're charging like unlawful entry into the ICE facility, that might be a federal crime. But like trespassing, like you're out past curfew, the curfew's a state thing. The state would have to charge that, not the federal government. So will New Jersey cooperate? Interesting question. Is New Jersey interested in enforcing this? Interesting question. I think that's worth keeping an eye on too. Like, will New Jersey actually bring charges? Because I think we've seen, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but we've seen that like one of the things that states can do is help. And when states assist ICE, it reduces the friction, it reduces the violence. So is New Jersey serious about this? That would be interesting to watch. I don't think they're going to charge like busloads of people, especially for like a violating curfew or like a low-level thing. But why not pick the 9 people who you could find on video assaulting an officer? Right. I mean, and I 9 is the number I'm making out of thin air, but I think from what you saw, you'd say it's at least 9. You would have seen.
Oh yeah. Well, I think everyone who got in front of it, like I said, obstructing federal law enforcement carries 1 to 8 years. There's at least 100 people that have done that. They should all get that charge. Every one of them that's standing in front of that gate preventing them. You see 8, 9 at a time doing that. And they've done it all over. By the way, what they're finding out is they announced the one dude they arrested yesterday is from Portland. These are the same paid agitators that go around and do this shit all over the place. And so, like, they're allowed. They did it in Minneapolis. They did it in L.A. They get away with it. They did it all through the summer love with George Floyd. They get away with it. There is never consequences. Ever. And just arresting 2 or 3 of them ain't going to cut it, as far as I'm concerned.
That would be an interesting approach. Like, how about this? You take the busload, right? People get arrested for these lower level crimes, right? Okay. Like, are you going to make a federal case out of like misdemeanor trespassing? Probably not. But when you arrest them, you have their IDs. Then you just find the people who are out of state. And you're like, all right, you're from Portland. You're in New Jersey rioting at this facility. We're investigating the crap out of you. right? Like so we're going to, all the people that we have like clear felonies on, we're charging. All the people who we have indications that there's a reason to investigate because it looks like they're instigators, they're the actor, they're the people who, like in BLM, the people who are coming from out of state. We're gonna investigate them, and we're gonna try to crack what that network looks like. That looks like smart police work to me, right? Where what you're trying to do is figure out how can you get low-level people who will get you up the chain and get to the people who are actually organizing. Because earlier you talked about RICO. If you were going to bring a big case, if you were going to have kind of like that big flagship case that you make like a national story out of, it can't be a guy hit a cop. It has to be, we found the Antifa network. We found the Telegram, right? We found the people who are connecting the people, and now we can put all the pieces together. I will say though, those are tough because these motherfuckers are typically decentralized.
Yeah,
right? Like it's a little bit. I'm just picking on at this point, but it's a little bit of the Pisco logic, right? Where they're like, "Oh, I'm just here protesting," and somebody else is like, "Oh, I'm just sending Telegram messages," and somebody else is like, "Well, I'm just coordinating the Telegram messages." Now you put it all together, and it becomes something more sinister. But each piece of the puzzle is separate.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not realistic. In my lifetime, man, wouldn't it be nice to see my government go aggressively after the people that are actually breaking the law as aggressively as my opponent's government comes after me. But I think it'd be nice to see once. I don't think there's any negative consequences whatsoever to doing the exact same thing to them that they did to us. I don't see any negative. What are they gonna do? Call them a fascist? Gonna all of a sudden suggest packing the courts? It's like whatever. It's already all baked in. Let's get this
and get some wins on the board. The other thing is get some wins on the board. Like we talked about this endlessly on the show, but this administration, whatever things it does that I've found favorably, their track record of landing a prosecution is pretty dismal right now. Like there's guys who were just hitting cops. That go win a case. That's a very easy case. Go win that case.
Well, I mean, there's guys that throw sandwiches at cops and they're let off the hook. And I'll guarantee they'll let some of these people off the hook. If it was local juries, they will. Yeah. And then there becomes a question, what do you do then?
That's an interesting question too, with how do you account for the local jury? Now, the thing about the sandwich versus like what happened last night, like when you're hitting a cop with a metal rod, that's a little, it looked like it was a traffic barrier. That's what they were picking up.
Do you think if someone threw a sandwich at an officer on January 6th, they'd have went to prison?
Oh, probably, yeah. But Rob, the point I'm making is if you're worried about sympathetic juries or unsympathetic juries, one of the things that changes that is the facts, right? Like with a sandwich, you're saying, oh, well, this technically is assault, but we all know no one got hurt. But technically it's a violation of the law. Please read the law, jury, do the right thing. In this one, you're like, well, they hit the cop with a metal bar.
What would you do? Like, what would you suggest if that got brought up and a jury says not guilty?
Well, I mean, jury nullification is a real problem. Jury nullification is like one of the, when I was talking about like fundamental norms that like you really like. I don't know if you know this. Lawyers are not allowed to talk about jury nullification near courthouses.
Right.
We can't even tell it to jurors because
I didn't know that.
But everybody knows it's like the Death Star with Star Wars. It's like if you shoot the missile here, the whole thing explodes.
Right.
The whole criminal justice system has a weak spot, and it's jury nullification. So lawyers aren't allowed to tell the juries that they're allowed to nullify because it's like we all know that there's a problem there, and it could lead to like the destruction of the system if it became a widespread practice. So yeah, that's always a concern. But the best antidote to potential jury nullification is having really good facts.
I disagree. I think the best antidote is to make their lives miserable in totality, the entire side, using the legal system. That's my solution. Okay. The system itself being tied up in these lawsuits or being tied up in criminal convictions and whatever, that's punishment as well. So fuck it. Do it to all of them all the time, constantly.
Wouldn't that incentivize jury nullification? Like if you brought, maybe I don't understand what you're saying, but like if you brought like 100 cases, right? And let's say 5 were pretty good, but like 90 were kind of on the weaker side. wouldn't that incentivize jury nullification? Because
well, yes, but it would incentivize slightly more. It'd go from 99% we're going against evil orange man who is the Fourth Reich to we're going against evil orange man who's the Fourth Reich and also brought a case that we don't think was the best. I guess it would increase like 1% that they would call him a fascist and demand for jury nullification. But the real problem with jury nullification, the impact is people get away with shit unpunished. So this would at least punish.
Well, but see, this is why I was saying I want wins on the board, right? Because part of it, like, okay, there's the law part. Like, I like having clean cases. I like prosecutors to bring cases they can win and are on. Like, okay, there's all that legal stuff we've talked about endlessly. But the other thing I really want, Rob, and this is more politics than law, I want people to have to see a cop getting hit with a fucking traffic barrier, and the left being, and then getting convicted, and the left being like, "There's no justice. There's no justice for this man who hit this cop with the traffic barrier on video," right? Like, I want them to have to. I want this to be like an obvious. You did something crazy. You hit a cop. What the fuck were you thinking? And then now you're going to jail, and either defend it or admit that this is a fucked up thing. This is a thing that shouldn't be happening. Because to your point earlier, Rob, that you made, they're always fucking rioting. And I watched a little bit of left-leaning coverage in prep for the show, and almost none of it was about the riots. It was all about, like, well, what nefarious thing is happening in the detention center? What bad thing are the?
But why would that change? If one of them goes to prison, they'll just ignore it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm saying I want it, Rob. I want.
I want every one of them in prison forever. I want the January.
I want to be able to go to a debate and be like,
I want them to go as long as the January 6th people did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, I want the hyper clean example. I want to be able to go in there and be like, okay, you guys think that the left is spotless? Here's this motherfucker hitting a cop with a bar. Here's his conviction. Are you defending that one? You know, I want the clean example. Now, I would also like 10 more clean examples.
Why is the conviction necessary, though? Also, for some reason, you're lagging. Wait, I don't know.
Oh, you were lagging on my end, but now...
I don't know.
Are we good?
I think it's better. Why is the conviction? I can show you hundreds of footage from George Floyd of people that never faced any consequence. Looting, burning down buildings, beating the shit out of people. What's the left's response to that? So if I was like, look, that guy got convicted, you know what their response would be? It's not going to make a difference to them, like, at all. My point is this. What is the negative? What's the negative? I can give you the positive, that at least we get some sort of reciprocation. Isn't the entire theory of the law supposed to be as best as possible? It's equal application. That's sort of the sanctity of the law, correct?
Well, it kind of, not in the way you're suggesting, but there's two different things. This is now I'm getting like academic, but there's two different things. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to get equal treatment when you're brought when you get your day in court. Mm-hmm. The question of prosecutorial discretion, like when they charge and when they don't charge, has never been equal, right? Like, and I don't mean that, like, when we got into these conversations and I got into like, oh, political prosecutions, me and Rob disagree. What like one of my central problems with political prosecutions is that I've worked with prosecutors. I know that prosecutors every day have to just like, they get a huge menu of potential cases they could bring. And they plead some out, they let some go, they charge some, right? Like they make decisions, and they make decisions every day. That it's what they do. They have to make decisions. And once you start making those decisions political, you get to the calculus you're describing. And I don't even refute the calculus. I think you're right. Like, if you're going to be political, then be political about it. But the problem is the discretion is so fucking endless. You know, like this is the world we get into, because you could always bring a crime or not, right? Like, I remember there was I was watching one of the people, the journalists at this at the riots recently, and the anchor asked, because they were getting escorted off by the police, and they said, like, well, did they escort off any other news people? And it's like, it doesn't matter. The police could escort off one and not the other. They don't have to actually be totally equal in the way they administer the law. There's no requirement that they be totally equal. Well, but then to your point, that becomes very unsatisfying.
But no. I disagree as well. Maybe I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. But I believe that we accept prosecutor discretion as a concept because there literally needs to be room within the system to not have a rigidity where the poor lady that stole a loaf of bread to feed her kid is suffering the same consequences as the billionaire that like takes a cup of change from a homeless child, right? Technically the same law being violated in theft, largely, and yet we have a discretion. That discretion shouldn't be things like this. Well, you're black, so we're just allowed to punish you, but if you're white, we'll let you go. You're a man, so we're just allowed to punish you, but if you're a woman, we'll have discretion. You're a Republican, so we're allowed to punish you, but you're a Democrat. So no, I don't accept that it's supposed to be within the concept of law that we say, we just have to accept those things. If all of the cops in the country decide to say, we only give a shit about charging Republicans, we have to accept and say, well, that's the law. We allow for that. There's no concept under the law that Republicans should expect equal treatment as Democrats. That just doesn't, I refuse to accept that.
Yeah, well, the reason, what I'm getting at is that there's a norm, right? There's not a law, there's a norm. Because, like, let's say you and me robbed a bank, right? And after they were robbing us, we got arrested, and the cops were like, you know what? And the prosecutor's like, the prosecutor like, I just like the cut of Rob's jib. I like his hat. Look at that logo. We're just not charging him. There's nothing. There's no violation there. There's no requirement that they charge you and me equally. They should. They ought to. There's a norm. But like, it is not the case that prosecutors have to charge every crime.
Well, I agree with that. Yeah. I agree, and I understand why. My point is, it's beyond norms. It's the expectation of the philosophy of law, of like the tradition of English common law. And the reason, like, we're all a bunch of fucking madmen running around doing whatever we want, right? Might makes right. And we're like, no, wait a minute. Let's be civilized. Let's come together and we'll appoint certain people that have a monopoly on force, and we'll set forth a code that says this is what's right and this is what's wrong, and we'll have the people with the monopoly on force be able to arrest you, and then we'll be brought in front of learned men that'll be able to sift through this, and you have all these rights. You have the right to a fair trial of your peers. Like English common law. Part included in that is you shouldn't be allowed to have the entire weight of the system bear down on one side because of your political beliefs, and have that entire system be favorable to the other side because of their political beliefs. Yeah. And when you are asking my side, like, look, just be happy if you could get one or two small victories. Now, as soon as the other side gets in power, they're going to bring the fucking hammer down. But just accept that system. And what I'm telling you is, of course, I'm not suggesting anything radical. What I'm saying is it makes the radical nature more likely on this side of things. Because inevitably people are going to be like, that's not a deal that works for us. I'm sorry. And if we're talking about things that ought to happen so that people go back to trusting the system, then the very first thing that ought to happen is trying as best as possible to be reciprocal. And as long as we accept that we're like, that's just not going to happen. And you're right, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There's going to be increased jury nullification when it comes to that side. And for all sorts of reasons, for political reasons, for racial reasons, for religious reasons. One of the problems they see, we had on footage in the United Kingdom, 2 Muslim guys beating the shit out of a female cop at an airport. Guess what happened? Hung jury. And now the prosecutors are like, we're not going to bring the case again. On camera, blatantly, you can see it. Now they're going after Nigel Farage for contempt for voicing his being pissed off. Again, British law, who gives a shit? They're all weird. But the point I'm trying to make is it eventually gets to that point where it's just like, well, we're just going to, it's 2-tier system, deal with it. And I don't know how much longer, just, I don't know about your chat, but I could ask my chat right now. I'll bet 20% of the people are like, I've totally lost faith in the entire legal system. Well, and I have no trust in it whatsoever.
This is, it's funny because while this is the one thing we always end up arguing about, we actually agree about the starting premise, which is we should not have political prosecutions, right? And the question is, what now, right? Because what you're basically saying is, and it's funny because this is, Pisco said something at the end of my debate with him, which I think was really revealing, maybe more than he intended to, where he said, like, the Republicans are all barbarians. They're going to do it anyway. Right? That's what he said. And the truth is, the thing you're right about is that we shouldn't have to feel like that the criminal justice system is going to be weaponized politically against one side and not the other. That's a shitty thing to feel. It's a terrible thing to feel. It does feel like a fundamental betrayal. And in a world where we believe that the other side is purely barbarians, it is very hard to come up with a reason not to do the same thing. right? Because you're at that point, you're in like eye for an eye deterrence. The question is, are we in that world? And it's tough, man, because I'm at such a disadvantage in these arguments with you, because I'm constantly trying to make the case that we shouldn't view ourselves as being in that world. And then every leftist I interact with goes out of their way to make it as obvious to me as possible that we are in that world. So I'm trying to stand on principle here, but I take your point, because if you look at the way that the left has reacted about like this court packing thing, does it seem like they're backing down? Does it seem like they're going to be like, oh, wait, hold on, that's a bridge too far? It doesn't seem that way to me. So I'm, as I said to Pisco, like, you're doing a good job of convincing me that maybe steps that I would find uncomfortable are necessary. But I'm trying to be an optimist about it, Rob, because the problem is once you go down that road, shit, like what's the bottom? Like, how do we get out of it?
Well,
I don't know.
For me, it's very similar to, I was in the same position as you 5 years ago in the idea of, quote, cancel culture. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, no, cooler heads will prevail. When we saw like Media Matters, for example, anytime any company would be like, oh, it's a Republican convention. Mm-hmm. Oh, and look, it's, Reebok has a booth set up there. Media Matters would immediately get on it, contact Reebok. All of these lefties would be like, fuck Reebok, whatever, boycott them. And so eventually this happened enough that these corporations came to the calculation, look, if we upset the right, they're just going to be like, well, we don't like you. If we upset the left, they're going to financially bury us. They're going to boycott us. So we'll just lean to the left. Right. And that's the game. Right. And so if you're doing game theory as a company, I would absolutely be like, we lean to the left, give to the LGBT cause, don't give to the pro-life cause. Don't ever do that. But yeah, sure. Now, the truth is, I think most of these corporations don't give a shit. They're just like, we're trying to make money. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our shareholders. That's it. And it makes sense in that world. And I said, but still, we should not reciprocate. We should not reciprocate. Cooler heads will prevail. And you want to know what the truth was? They're not going to prevail. They aren't. The only thing that will change it's mutually assured destruction. That's it. Only then, when the consequences meted out by these people, the standards are accepted. We accept your battle. You've declared this to be a war or a battleground. We now accept. Because the way it works is they're like, this is a battleground, and we're like, we don't want to join that battleground. And so when we get victories, we don't advance forward. We're just like, yay, we've kept things the way they are. Then they get victories and they push the ball. Then we get a victory and it stays. They get a victory and push the ball. So all of a sudden, now you could have an attorney general get elected in Virginia that wishes death upon Republican children, right? And we're supposed to talk about norms and, it only goes one way. So eventually, begrudgingly, I don't do it. I'm not going out canceling someone. But was I surprised when Charlie Kirk gets assassinated? That when the people were celebrating it, that there were people showing up to Home Depot saying, this bitch right here was on social media bragging about Charlie being dead. Fire her. It sucks that that's the world we're in, but that's the predictable consequences of only one side gets to play that game. Inevitably, the other side, the only chance the other side has is to say, then we play the game. So notice, though, that I'm not suggesting escalating to the point of, like, let's pack the courts. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying all the shit what I was told. That is true. Very low bar to starting an investigation.
Very low.
No one's above the law. Even former presidents, right? Prosecutorial discretion. They can decide who to go after and who not for whatever reason they want. Okay, I take those three concepts and say, what's the fucking problem with watching left-wingers riot and locking them all up? Then there you go. You get the January 6th treatment. Why not? And I can't come up with a reason. Like, what's the argument? They're going to escalate? If this happened once, and what I see it as, what you've done is, by that not occurring, Alex Preddy's dead. Renee Good's dead. That's the real consequence, in addition to the political shit. Let me ask you this question, Ryan. I've heard repeatedly, over and over, I'll be careful because we're on YouTube, I've heard repeatedly, you know how many officers died in January 6th? They'll say 5, right? Now, the real answer is 0, right? But Brian Sicknick did pass away a day or two later from a stroke, or complications from a stroke, I believe, which they were unable to connect to January 6th. And other than that, they talk about officers that tragically took their own life later. Anybody following up on the ICE agents? See how many of them take their own life? Do we get to say the left killed them?
Yeah.
It won't work that way, will it? There won't be political consequences. There won't be cultural consequences. There won't be legal consequences. And we'll watch the left ride over and over. And then, you ready for this spoiler? Mm-hmm. Sometime in the next 10 years, there'll be a right-wing riot. And when that happens, get ready. You'll remember that date the rest of your life because they're going to beat it into your head like January 6th. They're going to arrest every motherfucker who even considered traveling to that event. They're going to go through everyone's emails. They're going to debag people. They're going to take away the right to own guns. They're going to throw them in solitary confinement. Mm-hmm. Everyone in the media, right-wingers will crawl over each other to be like, this is despicable. My goodness, we have a problem on our side. All of it starts with the legal system because there is this idea that we're like, well, we just point to the authority and say, well, look, it had to be January 6th was worse. How do I know? They had almost 100% conviction rate. And look how many people they arrested. Yeah. And it was the largest FBI task force ever. It's time to start playing that game back. That's my argument. Well, I don't see any argument why it's not.
Well, if you were going to do, I guess maybe it's a reframe because like the thing that you were suggesting earlier, where you literally prosecute everyone, you do like the exact parallel.
Correct.
I don't even think it's like. I don't think it's a very good idea. I think your conviction rate's going to be low. I know you don't care about that as much as I do, but I do care about that. I think your conviction rate's going to be low. I think you're going to get a lot of people who are overcharged. You're going to get a lot of jury nullification for the reasons you said. I don't think it's even going to send the message you want to send. It's just going to be another fucking Trump fumble. What I would do, let me put on my if I'm going to be my attorney general hat. If I was fucking AG or in Kash Patel's position, what would I be doing? I would have said, okay, if I'm the Trump administration, we've had these riots going on, LA, Portland, Chicago, New Jersey, right? We've had tons of them. We've had people to arrest. We've had investigations to quietly launch. Is that actually happening, Rob? I couldn't tell you. Let's assume from if I was in charge, it would have. And what I would do, that RICO case you were talking about, where it's like, okay, let's actually connect the big fish. Let's do because if you're gonna get a symbolic justice, Rob, it's gonna have to be something that sticks. It's gonna have to be something that has some teeth that gets into the zeitgeist, right? And the way you would do that is you bring the big RICO conspiracy case and you bring it right before the Charlie Kirk trial starts.
I mean, I could accept that to some degree. I could,
but don't you think that would change the game? Like when you're saying no. When everyone's looking at this Charlie Kirk, we're going to be like, now we found the motherfuckers. They didn't pull the trigger, but we found the motherfuckers who created the structure that led to Charlie Kirk's death, and we're doing something about it right now. You don't think people would get psyched about that? You don't think that would I feel like that
would. Sure, that would excite people. That case is going
to completely.
That case is going to be harder to win than guy who's blatantly letter of the law obstructing that vehicle. We're charging him for that blatant crime. There's no reason not to do both. There is no downside whatsoever. And the idea of
agree with low conviction rate. You have them on fucking camera. We agree on that one.
But that's all of them. Literally everyone that's there we have on camera. This is unlawful. They're all standing there. They're engaged. If you're engaged with the mob that is throwing tear gas and you're line by line, side by side with these people, kettle them, arrest them. They were throwing tear gas. You're going to jail. The January 6th treatment.
Do you have a clip you could put up? We could be we could try to count the felonies.
Sure.
That might be funny.
Yeah. We'll do that real quick, but we do have to get to audience questions, so we will get there. But our comments, but I mean,
it's about it. Since we didn't talk about it much. Speaking of low bar to investigations, the fucking people who were so upset over Hassan getting a subpoena, I'm like, it's an investigation. They didn't charge him with a crime. I don't understand.
Yeah, that is very funny. Yeah, and he's giving up the goods. That's what I thought was the funniest about that. It's like, hasn't he been charged? And he's like, I'll name names.
See what I mean? It worked. Yeah.
Here's the one with them.
Guy's gonna fucking talk.
This is just the last one I had saved. So here's.
Are these state or are these federal?
I don't know these officers right here.
Those look state. Yeah, those look state to me.
Okay.
Get off the fence.
I can't see the logo.
Get off the fence. If you push that fence into my face, I will throw you on the ground and arrest you. You understand me?
Can you pause?
Yeah.
Sorry, do you have a Zoom or no? I just want to see if these guys are state or federal. I can't tell.
I don't. I'm not going to be able to Zoom. I'm an idiot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's all good. Well, these three...
Now, just to be clear, just so you know, everyone who touched a fence and pushed it to law enforcement in January 6th, 100% conviction rate.
Well,
every single one.
I was going to say, these three guys who are pushing the fence here, clearly that's a felony. Now, I was trying to figure out if the officers were state or federal because... that depends whether it's a state crime or a federal crime, right? But like clearly these three guys are guilty of a felony. Like it's no question.
So I mean, and that's just the most recent one I had. Like here's, I don't know if this is any better. It's here. We'll do this one real quick.
Yeah, you can't like. Let's assume.
We'll skip ahead a little where it gets more violent.
Yeah, here I can't tell because I don't see how they're interacting with the fence.
Well, when there are munitions being shot at you and you're throwing them back, that's assault.
Yeah, that one will count. So we got the guy throwing the munitions. Then we got with that big crowd scene. It was hard to tell.
How is everyone that's there once it's an unlawful riot not breaking the law?
Well, what are you
every single person?
What are you charging them with?
What am I being at a place that's been called an unlawful assembly?
Well, but this is what I'm getting at. Like, is it the unlawful assembly? That's going to be state, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Charge them state.
Well, who's charging them with the state crimes?
Well, okay. Well, if the state doesn't charge them with the crime, then there's no ability to say the feds to call an unlawful assembly and charge it.
Well, it depends. I don't actually know New Jersey that well, but like in general, one of the limits, this is what we're talking about with Renee Good, is that most crime within a state is not a federal crime. So in order for it to be a federal crime, it has to have like a federal element to it, right? So like if the state says there's a curfew and then you violate the curfew, that's a state issue, not a federal issue. So you need to have, in order for it to be federally charged, you need some kind of federal hook, right? Which would be assaulting the officer, forcibly resisting the officer, forcibly impeding the officer, blocking the car. If those were federal officers holding the fence and saying stop pushing the fence, that would be an 18 USC 111. But I don't like ICE, for example, doesn't have the power to enforce a curfew. Mm-hmm. And ICE doesn't have the power to enforce a protest. You can only be in the protest zone. That's the state. So like some of these crimes, they can't. The federal government couldn't necessarily charge. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. There's ways to get creative and charge all these people. I don't give a shit. Like I'm unpersuaded. They are intentionally blocking and aggressing federal law enforcement from entering or exiting a federal facility on public streets in their effort to do it. They are being forced out as they throw munitions back at the people. They're in the crowd heckling, threatening them. They are shoving back against them. Yeah, So now for me, let's leave the jury nullified. Charge the motherfuckers.
But that's what I mean. Like if you look at that first scene you showed me, right? You had the three guys who were pushing the fence. Mm-hmm. I think those are let's assume those are feds. Again, I don't know, but let's assume those are obvious charges. Then you got these other guys who are who are just touching the fence on the other side.
Were they arrested January 6th if they did this behavior?
I'm going to assume the answer is yes. I don't know.
They should be charged. These people should be charged.
Okay. Well. I guess
the law is either equal or it's not.
I'm gonna have to. I know we're not debating, but since you use the line, you haven't convinced me. I'm gonna have to use my counter, which is my job is not to convince you.
Well, that might be true, but the point is someone who cares about trust and faith into this system. You have to understand because this is allowed to happen. You're losing the faith of this side. That's it. And it just being like, well, it just has to be this way. We have to parse through and say any potential defense that could be of these people, and they have to have specifically on camera them doing these specific things before they arrest them. But if you're a right-winger and you do something like that, they're just going to round you all up, investigate if you're a pro-life protester and you're outside an abortion clinic, they'll kick in your fucking door. They don't care. They don't give a shit at all. As long as that system continues, it doesn't matter how persuasive you are as to like, well, but let's look at you sound to us like Pisco sounds to you.
No,
in a sense, and let me finish my thought.
Rob, be realistic.
In this sense, and that it sounds like this banal, like, well, wait a minute. Let's take it step by step. And let's look at why you have to accept that if you ever go to a protest that gets out of hand, a right-winger, your entire life will be upended, but left-wingers could do it every week. And let me go through step by step and explain to you why it must be that way. I'm not saying you're a bad person or doing it for the same reasons. I'm just saying at some point people just throw up their hands and they say, we don't give a fuck about this Rob, explanation.
The guys who were at the rally at Jan 6 but didn't enter the Capitol building, did they get arrested?
Some, but most didn't.
But mostly not, right?
Correct.
Like the people
they were in an unlawful they were trespassing, like these people. Yeah.
The people who were like in the first thing we saw, they're like all the way down frame. They're just like standing there watching the altercation. They're not yelling or screaming. They're just literally watching, right? They're not blocking anybody. They're on the right side of the fence. They're not pushing the fence. They're not.
Owen Schroyer, Brandon Straka, Enrique Tario. That's just three I can name off the top of my head. They weren't there. They got arrested.
Yeah, but my point is like arresting those people who are down the fence. Let's say you did it. Let's say you did it. They get a public defender for free and their charge gets laughed out of court by a magistrate judge instantly because there's no way you're going to get a conviction and everybody knows it. Then we're going to be on the show and you're going to be talking about like, oh, the fucking magistrate. You know what I'm saying? But the problem is it's a bullshit charge. And because it's a bullshit charge, even in a political climate, the bullshit charge isn't going to stick. Now, but there were like 4 or 5 people that we saw who clearly had felonies. So all I'm saying
so your argument is bullshit charges work for Democrats. They'll get 100% conviction rate. So they should charge whoever. Game theory, you'd say totally makes sense.
No.
Forget justice. Forget justice.
I'm not saying that.
Did it work January 6th? Did they have almost 100% conviction rate?
I think if you when you enter the Capitol, they have a slam dunk on you. That's the problem.
No. They just like if you violate curfew, they have a slam dunk. Just like if you obstruct the vehicle, they have a slam dunk.
But who charges the state? Who charges violation of curfew?
It doesn't. It
the
doesn't.
State. The state doesn't. The federal government can't charge it.
It doesn't matter. Could the federal government charge that all of these people are reasonably obstructing law enforcement?
No.
Why not? They're literally outside. They're building barricades
every single time.
They are literally building barricades during the day to prevent the vehicles from leaving.
Yeah,
and people are knowingly attending that, cheering it.
Well, you said all. I think you could charge a sum, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a bunch of people you could charge.
So if I sit there and I cheer it on, but I never move a brick, then I haven't. Even though I'm engaged in this same sort of unlawful assembly, I haven't done anything.
You haven't done an 18 USC 111. No, you didn't forcibly obstruct.
I disagree. As a jurist, I would think I didn't. So bring the charge. Let them be found not guilty.
You're talking about like a conspiracy type charge, but
also obstruction.
Well, okay. If you're just standing watching and you didn't use your body to obstruct the cop, how did you obstruct?
If I am materially helping the people that are intentionally obstructing, knowing that they're obstructing, then yes, I should be able to be charged for that. Okay. Any different than if I hand you the rifle for you to shoot one of these officers, could I say, I didn't shoot him? I just supported and cheered him on to do so.
You'd be talking about a conspiracy or aiding and abetting.
Okay,
charge.
Well then, whatever that may be, then charge him for that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm not sure that the thing is with 18 USC 111, I'm not positive that you actually can charge it that way. I'd have to look at that. That's an interesting question that you're raising, but it typically is not charged that way. I don't know if there's a mechanism to charge it that way. I could look into that for the next show. I haven't ever deep dived that.
We saw people that went to the Unite the Right rally get debanked, had
Yeah.
their lives ruined, be charged. I'm tired of watching hundreds of examples of left wings rioting, nothing being done. And one of my best friends on this subject, who's a learned attorney, saying, it'd be great, Rob, if we could arrest one or two of those people.
Oh,
That's bleak. That's bleak.
No, Matt, what's bleak is me thinking about our show the next week where you're like, Ryan, how come we can never convict any of these motherfuckers? And I'm like, Rob, I was telling you that's a bad charge. And they're like, damn it.
But you would be doing the same if they convicted those three guys, which they won't. Most of those guys will be left off the hook, if not all of them. And then if we charge them and they were found not guilty, you'd still be like, well, I guess next time we should be more selective in who we charge. Next time that three guys shove a gate at law enforcement, we would say, you know what? Those last charges didn't stick. It'll require a higher bar.
They got to do the thing that the Trump administration has proven itself to be really, really bad at this term around. They're great at the Supreme Court. Like the John Sauer litigation team, they've been fantastic. But in terms of line prosecution, in terms of bringing a good case and making it stick, they've been pretty shit, Rob. They've been pretty shit. I don't know how to sugarcoat this.
Well, that's
true. They've been fucking terrible at this. So what they need to do is they need to be good at this job. Like, what's her name? Who's this? God, now I can't remember her name. The lawyer who does civil rights enforcement for the Trump administration.
I know who you're talking about. Is it Dylan?
Yeah, Harmeet
Dillon. Yeah,
she's great. Like, she's a very, very competent attorney, right? So what they need is that type of competence on criminal enforcement, generally speaking, because I think we've had this debate so many times. I think I hear your frustration, and I think the only thing that will make you feel better about this in the long run is having successful prosecutions where you're like, oh shit, we got him. We actually got him.
Getting one guy will do nothing. No,
okay,
I disagree. If they get the gate guy there, I'm supposed to be like, whoa, thank goodness they get thousands of us. We get one of them. I'll just be like, what the fuck is this? This is nothing. Unless they have something cooking in the books, like you said, where they're actually going at people that are organizing this,
which they should.
They should. But unless they have that, your strategy of here, we got those three gate guys. That does nothing. I'll be like, are you fucking kidding me? That's what we're expected. We're expected to be like, if we ever go slightly we didn't have to go beyond the line. You know this. You know it's true. How many of these, what was the law we were talking about, the specific one, the FACE Act? How they aggressively go after all the fucking anti-abortion people. And then we have to watch day after day after day after day as people sit outside churches and scream and yell and do all this shit. No one ever gets charged. If they got charged, the sympathetic juries are gonna be like, "What the fuck is this? Who cares?" You yell at people going into a church.
You know Richard Hania?
Yes.
His human capital theory.
Yeah. No, I don't.
So one of his theories, and I don't think he's wrong about this, is that one of the problems the right has is that it has one of its structural features is that it doesn't tend to attract as many intellectual types for a variety of reasons. And one of the manifestations of that is they just don't seem to have as many really savvy prosecutors. It does not appear to me like they have an army of amazing prosecutors ready to like jump in and prosecute all these cases and get convictions all the time. They keep fucking it up, Rob. And there's an infrastructure issue there for sure, at least in my opinion, from the outside looking in. So I'm hoping that's because they're using these people for, like the A teams being used for something bigger. But it could very well be, and this would be, I think, a doom and gloom take, but it could very well be that they just don't have the fucking manpower to do this right. And that's why they're not. That's the other possibility. And I'm not sure I can rule it out.
Well, I did. I'm not going to be able to find this, but I actually saw. It made me think of you. I don't know if I tagged you or not, but it was a chart that I saw. The statistics of professors and students entering law school. Did you see this? It sort of went viral. I'm scrolling to see if I will be able to find this, but it's bleak. It's very bleak, and I don't know that I'll be able to find it here at Recall, but it's now like something like 96% of students and 97% of professors at law schools in the United States, I believe, identify as left-wing.
Yeah.
If that's true, and I don't know that those exact, unless I'm seeing it in front of me, and there could be problems with methodology, etc., but that seems to at least feel somewhat true. It's at least overwhelmingly left-wing. What do we do? Do we just accept that? Like, half this country will have almost zero representation in the legal system in the next generation?
Well, and then
I mean, that's a massive problem, right?
Well, this is, one of the themes of the show, right? Is it's not enough to root out bad institutions or corruption or other these problems. There has to be a rebuilding that's done around. Yeah.
So this was from, I don't know who.
This is my experience of law school for sure. This is what my law school is like. So yeah,
I mean,
anecdotally, this looks right.
I mean, even if you look at bad enough in 1990, it's 60% of the students were left leaning and 70% of the professors. Right now we're at it looks like 96% of professors, 94% of students. Yeah. Now, it's enough to be I sympathize with the idea of yes, of course, and it's certainly true. Mm-hmm. We have to do something to change that. We do. But what do you say in the immediacy? What do I tell my son? My son's generation of lawyers are going to be 97% left-wingers. And by the way, when it says left, if this mirrors colleges, not just law school, but colleges in the work Jonathan Haidt's doing, it's not just that they're becoming left, it's they're becoming radically left. And if that's the case with law students as well, why should my son have any faith at all that the legal system will be even the appearance of trying to be fair for him?
Well, but there is the counterpoint to that graph, which I don't have the data on, but just from personal experience. Mm-hmm. If you're a student, you're younger, and you tend to be more likely to be left. Not 90%, that's an aberration, but historically more likely to be left. And if you're a professor, you're more likely to be left. But if you're a lawyer who's out in the world making money, winning cases, running a business, those tended to be more right-leaning people, right?
Well, but you disproved that. It's an interesting theory.
The profession was not always super left-leaning, even if the institutions were, but that might be changing. I'm not ruling that out because 90% is different than 60%. But right? Even there's a big difference there.
Even your theory there, you already poke holes in by your previous statement, which is maybe there just aren't prosecutors to do this. So even you're acknowledging that it could quite well be that they just don't exist.
It's possible. It is
and
possible.
Then when you factor on that, the treatment Eastman's getting and the treatment that so many of other Trump's attorneys, attorney-client privilege pierced, all of them being looked at for criminal charges, etc., the lesson's quite stark that's being put out there on the apprehension of law enforcement, etc. Left gets treated with kid gloves, right gets treated as hard as possible. When it comes to both prosecutors and defense, overwhelmingly a left-wing bias. When it comes to the judges, overwhelmingly a left-wing bias. When it comes to the jury pools in almost every one of these cities, overwhelmingly a left-wing bias. And so at some point, I do sympathize because I do think that I vacillate from sort of being look, I just want something done and a statement to be out there that's fuck you, we're not doing this anymore. But then I also am I hear what you're saying, but you need real world wins. It can't just be all symbolic. It has to be something that there could be teeth behind. So I'm in those two worlds. I'm trying to listen to it, right? And I'm sort of playing a little bit of devil's advocate here with you. But it does become bleak where it's I don't know that there is hope. Well, I don't know that there is. I think Republicans, we're likely to see a system where Republicans could win for the next 15, 20 years, and it'll be irrelevant when it comes to the legal field because the legal field's just going to be fuck you. We'll just choose to ignore the law. We'll choose to blatantly have a two-tier system, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. You ain't going to be able to find attorneys to push back. So what are you going to do about it? And if you do, we'll have juries that are just fuck you, we don't care. We're morally righteous and you're evil, so we just don't give a shit. Or we have our racial in-group. We don't go, we're Muslims in Minneapolis. We don't give a shit. We're not going to vote for the Somali daycare guy to be found guilty. We don't care. How about that? What are you going to do about it? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It is bleak to look at things from that perspective. I now will push back and say, as far as I couldn't tell you shit all about the people that did this study. So that could be garbage. I do know a lot about Jonathan Haidt and heterodox. And the numbers. He's great. The numbers in general academia mirror this, where it's like it's a very bleak. He sort of draws a bright line straight from social media, where it's like once we had social media, you had sort of a like exponential increase in the radical left of students and professors.
Well, one of my friends, he goes by Darwin to Jesus on X, but he's kind of like an X apologist, I'd say, is what I call him as. But Daniel, he's a good guy. He does a lot of like theology, philosophy on X. He made this point once when we were talking about like morality, and when you talk about like Christian ethics or objective morality, this sort of thing, he was saying like, how do you have a legal system with people who don't believe that law has an objective meaning we could find? If they think it's just like they're entitled to make it up, like what are you supposed to do about that? And it's actually not a small problem, because what's the meta critique of like living constitutionalism? That you're just making it up. And they're like, yeah, we are just making it up. That's the point. And you're like, oh shit, you don't even agree that's a problem. Oh, now this is a more fundamental issue. So yeah, I do think there's a problem there, but I think the only way to ever combat that is to have like for example, like have the exemplar where it's like, we've been hearing about like Antifa forever, right? We've been hearing about these Telegram signal chats forever, about the agitators coming in from out of states, the funding, where's the funding coming from, right? Fucking prove it. You know what I'm saying? Like, prove it. You put the evidence on the table and prove it. You have the whole power of the federal government. Prove it. Because that's the only thing I could think of that would be a needle mover there, where we could say like, actually, no, look at this. This shit actually happened. Like then you can go on Brian Shapiro's show and be like, hey, Brian, you were talking about you need a conviction. I got a conviction. Let's talk about it.
He'll say, Rob, show me your penis. That's what he'll say. It'll be I think in the meanwhile, we will get to the audience questions right here, or super chats, but the last thing I'll say on this is the tragic, it's not just a political thing. The tragic, I'm going to go out on a limb here. You ready? Someone's going to die before the election. One of these anti-protests is going to die. And that's it. And I do think that you could hang that on Republicans in the Trump administration. I think that it is fair to say that in the opposite way of what the Democrats were, because they would not make the decisions that are difficult that I'm suggesting, because they allow this to occur night after night, because they won't do something, because they're either approaching nothing or they're approaching your theory. And both of those theories mean that someone else is going to die, because there is no disincentive whatsoever for these people to continue to do this over and over and over and over while we wait for some sort of RICO case to maybe materialize 6 months in the future. And so if you want to save these lives, what you do is lock these motherfucking people up. That's what you do. Let them have their day in court. If they get released because it's laughed out, when they go back and they do this shit again, lock them up again. It will save their life. It will save the possible lives of these ICE agents that are continuing to be threatened, harmed, whose mental health and PTSD is probably through the roof. And I'm tired of these people having to be superhuman while we sit and parse like, well, there's nothing really we could do. These people are going to riot every night. I have a difficult time stomaching it. I think it's one thing if it's an impromptu situation. When you're on night 6 of showing up to do the riot at this facility, and you ready for another prediction? They'll eventually disappear from Newark, and then we'll see the same faces in LA, Chicago, Atlanta. Watch and see, and we'll be having the same debate. Well, what are they violating?
And this is the question of cooperation that I think is actually this is the thing to really keep an eye on. Because I was looking it up while you were talking, with the 61 arrests, like the big bus arrests, right? Those were stadies. So
yes,
that's not federal. That's not up to the Trump administration. That's the state of New Jersey decides whether they're charged or not. Right?
Almost every single one of those cases will be dropped. By the way,
and even if they're dropped, there's a second question, which is the state going to cooperate and then be like, hey, federal government, we arrested these out-of-staters. We arrested these agitators. Hey, even like of the 61, here are the 10 that we think are bad out-of-state actors. You should keep your eye on these guys in case they show up later. Are they even going to do that level of courtesy? I think the answer is probably no. But like they could. I don't think they will, but they could. But I think what's the thing we should keep our eye on, Rob, is like as these situations reoccur, who's doing the arrest? Is it a state arrest or is it a federal arrest? And then figure out like, are the states the ones who are choosing not to bring these charges, or is it the feds who are choosing not to bring these charges? Because I don't know that I know I have my thumb on that data yet, but I suspect that you're right. And I suspect that when we look at this, there's going to be a lot of catch and release on the state side and a much higher charging rate on the federal side would be my intuition, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, it's tough. And like, look, I think it's bleak. Like, I do push back on everything I said to an extent. Now, I do believe they should charge these people, but I don't think it's worth blackpilling or losing hope because this stuff doesn't occur. But I come to you because this is what I hear. When I talk to people on my channel, or even more when I talk to people in real life, they've given up. They just don't care. They're like, this system's a joke. It's a joke. If someone came... if I go, I don't want to go to any right-wing rallies because if someone starts a fight, my ass will be thrown in prison forever. And I know it. And what am I going to tell them? No, it's like, yeah, it will be. Yep, that's probably a good chance what'll happen. Mm-hmm. But the left could come to my store and riot and loot and burn down, and it'll just shoulders shrug. And a lot of that, as you're correctly pointing out, is on the state. Yeah, it's on the city. A lot of my friends are in the Pittsburgh area.
No one has bothered me about that. This is a tangent, but the thing that really bothered me about this the most, which is something that in his saner days, Destiny talked about before he went on his like lunatic arc. He used to talk about January 6th, and he'd say like, well, part of this is a question of what you know and what you don't know. Because if you believe that the government stole the election from you, then all sorts of like different actions might appear justifiable, right? Like, and then with Rittenhouse, with the shooting of Blake, like that turned out to be a totally good shoot. It was investigated. It was a good shoot. But like, if you really believed that there was this like wave of cops who were killing thousands of unarmed black men per year, which the data suggests people did believe, okay, then you start understanding why they might be rioting. But it bothers me that there's never... that question is never asked in the opposite direction, to your point. No one's ever like, oh, like they'll say like, oh, well, the rioters outside of the ICE facility, they're just there because they think that all these horrible things are happening inside. It's like, well, you always have that justification for violating law. Like, oh, I think that I'm right to justify the law. That can't be the standard. It just can't be. So, and I'm sympathetic to, and that I'm very sympathetic to that argument because like the nobility of the intentions, or the self-described nobility of the intentions can't be a reason for not enforcing the law. It just can't be.
Yeah, I mean, and that's to me why I'm so steadfast against anyone that's calling for any forms of political violence, right? It's this abolitionist person that we called in the other day, which is it's towing the line. It's like feigned incredulity. Oh, yes, we should use violence against fascists. Oh. Yes, the Trump administration is fascist. And Alice just is an idiot, right?
But holy shit, did she get me? Holy shit.
Yeah, you quoted the preamble.
Yeah, that clip of me reading the Declaration of Independence. Oh, man, she got me good, Rob. She burned me. She got me good.
It is hilarious when I've talked to people that are smarter than her that make this argument, this is the way the argument goes, right? This is why I've been so steadfast against all forms of political violence, because this is how it goes. So you're saying political violence in the history of the world's never been accepted? Ever? We've never been allowed to do it? What about the founding fathers, Rob? Do you think that it was immoral of them to declare war on King George and to use an act of political, but do you think that was immoral? And when, of course, predictably, you're like, well, no. There are very rare exceptions. They say exactly. And by the way, you want to know what one of those rare exceptions are? Donald Trump's a fascist.
Yeah.
Oh, or the system's systemically racist. See, it just so turns out, if you could get someone to concede, yeah, I guess there's a 1 in a million chance that political violence is necessary, they say, and wouldn't you know it, the exact thing I believe, that's the time, baby. That's why, for me, it's just like, for the intents and purposes of everything that we're discussing here, on the right or the left, I think the election was stolen. No, You can't use political violence. I think that Trump's a fascist. No, you don't get to use political violence. I think that there's systemic racism. No, you don't get to do it. Because as soon as you're like, well, wait, then all it becomes is, well, let's have a debate if whether or not Trump is. And this, I remember it was a viral moment when this guy, Richard Spencer, got punched 2014, 2015, right? And there was this, I'll use the N-word one time. Not that one. There was, is it okay to punch a Nazi? Right? This went viral. And I remember, I think it was like the Telegraph or the Guardian. I remember in real time watching this like segment they put out, and they were like, no, but sort of yes, was basically their response. And I was like, the answer is no. Not the least of the reasons, which is why, is because as soon as you say yes, then the very next argument is, and all of the people that disagree with me are Nazis. And you just said I'm allowed to punch them, so... And that's where we're at now in society. The left has won the narrative framing, where it's like our opponents are evil, and they've beat it into the heads of their audience. And so now you have misguided people like Hopelessness calling in saying, federal law enforcement officers aren't allowed to arrest someone that's beating them. That's tyranny. And we should use guns against tyrannical officers. And it's up to the state officers to come and arrest if they want. And if the state doesn't do it, womp womp, oh well. Right? And it's like, they believe that. They have no fucking clue what they're talking about.
By the way, those people directly contributed to the deaths of Alex Preddy.
Of course, and they're happy. They're happy for those deaths.
Because they wanted there to be no state police there, and the state police would have 100% prevented those deaths if they were there. Like, I remember watching the Alex Preddy video, and I was just like, why the fuck are the protesters being allowed to, like, because if you watch the video, the first thing he does, he stops traffic.
Yes.
And he's waving a car through.
Which is a crime.
Well, but I'm like, wait, there's a protest. There's federal officers here. Why is no one controlling traffic? And the answer is because there was no staties there to control traffic. There's no locals.
Well, that was the whole argument for the National Guard in the first place, was not quite to control traffic, but the argument was the ICE officers aren't designed to be like a militaristic force. Like they're designed for a specific, and Border Patrol. When they're being attacked aggressively by people in mass, they're not really equipped or trained to deal with that. So, you know who is? The police. The police are more, but they're like Gavin Newsom had started in LA, remember? He was like, nah, we're not going to send the police. And then there was like, in Chicago, there was a 911 clip where ICE is calling the Chicago police like, help us, we're surrounded. And they were given stand down orders. So then it's like, well, someone has to protect these officers. We'll send the National Guard. And this was the game with the George Floyd shit, right? The locals, the states and the cities, like the mayors, the governors, they're like, we won't send shit, and we'll allow it to escalate. We'll cheer on the escalation, and then we'll force Trump's hand. And Trump will say, well, then fuck it. We have to send in the guard. And they'll go, fascist. That's what the game is, right? Step back, allow these. And so what we're asking, the way it worked in Newark was this. We had to ask the ICE officers, you're going to be brutally attacked for like 5-6 days. Until eventually the PR is enough that the local stadies will have to send people in. But guess what? Good luck for 4 or 5 days. Yeah, good luck. Well, you have to deal with it. And that's when someone's going to get killed. Well, because in those 4 or 5 days...
They're going to get killed, for sure. Because, again, I don't want to harp on this, but like, by the time an 18 USC 111 has been committed, like when you forcibly obstructed, you're in like close proximity. You're in like a high friction situation with an officer. And if you have 100 of those, 1 or 2 of them is going to be a violent interaction, right? Just by the numbers. The thing about having cops there to control traffic is now you reduce the number of like actual forcible violent obstructions of federal officers exponentially. So now you only got 2 or 3 of those, and probably they get arrested quickly and it's over, right? But if you have 100 of those, someone's going to get killed. Like, because like in any... this isn't like an ICE thing. This is all law enforcement. If you look at any law enforcement and you looked at like violent arrests, not easy arrests, but like arrests where the person's like resisting, does someone get hurt? And the answer is like, yeah, eventually. Eventually, yeah. Like no matter how well trained the officers are, eventually something bad will happen.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to get into. I could take this in a completely other. I'll just say this: that means that something bad's going to happen, and it may be completely unjustified on the side of law enforcement.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Or it may be completely justified. That's why I say, I think there's a very good argument to be had that the Alex Preddy thing was unjustified. In fact, I think it's 99% likely it was unjustified. Does it rise to the level of criminality is a different question, but it was unjustified. The Renee Goodwin was justified.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't, the Democrats' argument, they say it over and over. 2 people were murdered in Minnesota. 2 were murdered. Right? And they don't parse out like, one of them.
None were murdered, but 2, maybe one was unjustified.
Argument.
Yeah.
Well, that's the argument they make, that both were murdered. And it's like I'm trying to stop. And if you're a lefty and you're listening, I assure you, these people don't give a fuck about you. They want a bad consequence to happen to you so they can stand on your grave and say, see, now let's give my... They had to Photoshop Alex Preddy to make him look more like a Chad. Imagine that. And by the way, Preddy, who what's happened to him is tragic. Let's not forget, we see footage of him armed, destroying police property, smashing a police vehicle, kicking it a week before, and another violent altercation with police over this. And, like, instead of having friends pull him back and say, what the fuck are you doing, man? You're bringing a gun into intentional conflict with police? Like, you're smashing police cars? Something really bad may happen here, man. Instead, his friends were like, yeah, do it. Oh, he's dead. Oh, my God. It's fucking disgusting. And for me, this is what I said. It's like, the Democrats want this, and they make it inevitable. And it's like this. I know we're running a little long here, but it's like I always said, that if you wanted to create a racial police narrative, or even forget racial, just say you wanted to take a group. Let's say you were like, I want to make it look like police are bigoted towards gingers, right? We have how many law enforcement to some degree in this country? My guess is 10 million? 5 million maybe? It's something around there, right?
A huge amount.
Everybody has one of these. I'm sure if you put the call out, within 2 weeks, we can find footage somewhere of a cop, like, aggressively manhandling a ginger, right? Then you put that video out and make it go viral, and it's like, there it is. There's your narrative, right? And so it's like, when you make, just to give you an idea of the vastness of it, if you continually put people in a position in the way that Telegram communication said, they are organizations of lefties creating, in their language, not mine, quote, flashpoints of confrontations with police that they know will get violent. Inevitably, it's just a roll of the dice. Inevitably, it's going to come up snake eyes and there's going to be violence. And when that happens, the left's going to point to it and say, see, fascists. Like Alice just is in your chat right now saying, oh, the poor police, they need protection. So here's the game they play. Yes, the local police shouldn't occur. Police could protect themselves. Then when police protect themselves, what is someone like Alice just say? Fascist, tyranny.
Well, and Rob, this is, I think, one of the themes of this show. I know we're going like way long because we got.
I don't mind. I'm streaming for 2 hours afterwards.
Oh yeah,
you might.
No, it's fine for me too. One of the themes of this show, long term, and this ties a lot together because this is the debate I had with Pisco, and the reason I approached it the way I did, the conversation we're having now, is that a lot of the time the stuff you're describing on the left, it's decentralized. It's this here and this here and this here and this there, right? And that creates a narrative disadvantage. And part of what people like us can do is try to connect the dots so that somebody who's watching us can be like, oh, wait a minute, now I understand. Like, if I'm talking to somebody about ICE enforcement, it is very important that I bring up whether or not the state is supporting. Because if the state's not supporting, that's creating the environment for violent friction on purpose. That's an important dot to connect, right? And I think that we can connect these dots for you guys in the audience. But what I really want is that goddamn prosecution, right? The RICO one where the dots are connected in court. And then it's not you and me hunting for these details, right? It's like, we're like, see, they cracked the signal chat. They cracked the telegram. Like, look, we fucking found these guys. Because I intuitively, my intuition tells me there's got to be some organizing principle, at least for some of this shit.
They're definitely.
But I couldn't prove it. I don't have the evidence, right? I couldn't prove it, but hopefully they can.
People like Cam Higbee and others, they've got into these organizations and see that there's we don't know who's financing, but you have these, like, for example, in Portland, they had safe houses, right? They had safe houses. We know who's the landlord of these. We know who owns these houses. So it's
Wait,
incredibly.
hold on. You said Cam Higbee?
Yeah.
Hold, wait a lot. Oh, sorry. I think I might know that guy. Sorry, I'm just
Really? Yeah, Cam's one of the guys that shows up. He was there all week at Newark, getting attacked and shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Different Cam, you know.
Name recognition pop. Anyway, go ahead.
Nick Sorter, yeah. So they've infiltrated these groups and they see there's funding and they have protocol. We see from the Telegram groups. The Telegram group said Minneapolis, it was so expansive. They had someone that they know had connection to law enforcement technology to scan license plates because they literally were able to scan unmarked vehicles and know whether or not they were federal vehicles. Because they had the ability, so there must have been someone within law enforcement communicating with them. So we know that these exist, and the telegrams have been exposed, right? The question is, what's being done to deal with it? And again, we don't know, and that's the thing that's frustrating even further. I could be sitting here pissing and moaning, and literally a week from now, we could see like a mass arrest where it's like some wealthy financier and some college professors and some politicians are involved in the funding and the communication to obstruct law enforcement, and then it's a different picture, right? It's like, wow, there is shit happening, right?
Yeah.
But it is frustrating in this moment, and I think what makes it even more frustrating is what we saw in 2020. We basically saw like. As bad as this is now, 2020 to me is the ultimate because everything about that picture. If you remember what it felt like to be stuck in your house under COVID restrictions while simultaneously lefties rioted, and you turn on your news at night and they're like, it's mostly peaceful as they're standing in front of infernos. And you're just sitting there like, what the fuck is going on? How is this possible? And there was part of, even me, as cynical as I am, there's part of me like, well, they're going to bring the fucking hammer down on these people. And nothing. Nothing happened. And it's like our president gets moved to a bunker because they're attacking the White House. And everyone collectively is like, my God, what a scandal. Did you see the next day Trump gave a speech and the Bible was upside down? And you're like, wait a minute. Wait, what? What is happening here? And they got away with it. And now to see it happening again, there's part of you that's just like, unfucking believable. Have we learned nothing? Is this the new reality? You know,
2020 radicalized a lot of people, man. Like I think I told you this, but I remember like in New York, because that's where I was living in that area, they had the BLM protests and they got a COVID exemption, right? And it's like, okay, you guys can have your exemption. But and the medical community said that systemic racism is a health issue. So you could have a COVID exemption and have your protest, right? And then there was a group of people who wanted to protest the mask mandate and the vaccine cards. And they were like, no protests allowed. That's illegal. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on. I think a lot of people saw COVID policies. And it's like, even like, I was talking to Jake Rattlesnake when I went on the extravaganza, and he was like, yeah, without COVID, I would not be doing any of this stuff. This is all downstream of COVID for him. Right. Like that's where he got launched into this world. So, yeah, I think people saw it very plainly because you were at home and you were forced to live it every day and you could just see it play out outside your house. And you're like, holy shit, there really is a problem here.
And so now I think when you see it again, at least in the context of these riots, people start to, at some point, you're just like, I don't know. And like, look, if you watched my show recently, anyone who's watched, I've been fighting back against a lot of the right wingers that are like, well, vote Democrat. We'll show those Republicans. That's a terrible idea, right? But I've been pushing back. But one thing that they have right is like the feeling of bleakness on certain issues. And this to me is the bleakest of them. That's just like, we just have to accept that the left gets to riot. They just do. And like in places like Seattle and stuff, or Minneapolis or California, the left runs the streets. It's just the way it is. They get to do it. And there ain't shit all you can do about it. Nothing. If you decide like the Proud Boys did, well then fuck it. We'll show up and we'll engage in mutual combat. You're going to be labeled a terrorist? You're going to go to prison?
Yeah.
There's this guy, I don't know if you ever heard this story.
But is there an example of this happening? Like, because, I'm thinking about it. It's like LA, Portland, Chicago, New Jersey, right? I assume this shit just doesn't happen in Texas.
I mean, there you had the BLM. The
BLM stuff was widespread, I guess. But
yeah, there was the guy in BLM at the one protest, right, that killed 4 officers. And then that was infamous because Obama showed up to the funeral and was like, we need to talk about police treating blacks with respect. It's like, motherfucker, they just killed 4 cops. You couldn't save this shit for your conversation tomorrow. You had to at the funeral.
Yeah. Well,
So
what I was getting at though is that like if you happened in Texas, Abbott's AG, like they're going to prosecute the fuck out of this. So I'm wondering if it never happens in Texas because the states are.
Well, I think that's
yeah.
There's stuff to say about Abbott. I think he should have been more aggressive enforcing the border, even though the Biden administration was against. But nonetheless, fair enough. Yeah, and it's certainly the case. But there's no reciprocal nature of this. I mean, imagine this scenario, right? Lincoln, Nebraska. A bunch of fucking Oath Keepers and Proud Boys get together and decide to take 6 city blocks of Lincoln, Nebraska over and declare it an autonomous zone. It's free from U.S. tyranny. How long do you think that shit lasts? How long? What do you think the media is saying? Or imagine, under the Biden administration, they right-wingers for the 7th day in a row attacked a federal facility where pro-lifers were locked up. How do you think that conversation goes? Even in a right-wing state, it is universal condemnation. The boot is brought down so hard on these fucking people, their head spins. It's the biggest story in the nation for 3 years about the radical Trump supporters, radical right-wing. We literally accept this. Portland's like this every night. Seattle's like it every night.
But Rob, the paradox of tolerance. Don't you know that it's the paradox of tolerance is a one-way ratchet? I have a syllogism I could give you. It's pretty good.
Yeah, syllogisms are great. Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, it's bleak, but it's not too bleak. And here's the thing, right? I guess the one white pill is, I think, even though it might not show up immediately, I do think people are getting fed up with it. I do. I think that the way that you could go about it outside the scope of the legal system is to fight an information battle. And to me, the weakest thing on the Trump administration that they actually can accomplish, in addition to the legal stuff you're talking about here with like potential RICO charges and stuff, is that they don't do a good job with the narrative. If I was them, I would every time I talk to the press, I would have this footage playing behind me constantly. And I would do like a quid pro quo with every press and be like, we'll answer your question, whatever you have about the economy, about whatever. But first, you're going to tell me what you think about this. Here's another ICE officer. Have you looked into him? Have you looked into his family? Yeah. How do you think he's doing? You think PTSD? Now, I noticed you wrote this article talking about the officers on January 6th. Have you looked into this? Have you questioned any Democrat politician who have you done that? And I would be giving nightly reports like they were kind of trying to do under COVID. Like, here's what the violent left was up to today. Here's what the politician said. Oh, nothing. They just criticized ICE again, had nothing to say. That's the message that needs to be getting out there to the American people. And, I think that that's an effective message. And if it's not, well, then we might be too far gone anyways, right? So for me, that's the message that you push. You don't have to do anything radical illegal or radically violent or anything. It starts with winning the information war. And I do think the Trump team's lacking, and I think the Republicans in general are lacking with that. But I think that's sort of why me and you, we may have differences on what we want to see done legally, but I think we're both on board with the importance of winning the messaging of just how extreme and radical things are becoming on the left like this. It's not just today we're talking about the riots. Last week it was court packing, right? Or it was trying to keep Republicans off of ballots in purple states, and winning that information war. I truly, there are a lot of people that are just true believers on the left. You're not going to convince them. But I think there's a lot of normies that would just be shocked. They would be shocked to be like, if you just did the old, okay, here's pictures of a violent riot that occurred on January 6th, and here's what Trump said, right? This is a human rights issue and blah, 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 blah. And people would be like, that's condemnable. Be like, oh, psych, that was actually yesterday at an ICE facility, and that was Hakeem Jeffries' statement, not Trump's. I think they'd be like, oh, really? Not lefties, but normies. And I think that you would be able to convince some people this is not Bill Clinton's Democrat Party. This is not Jimmy Carter, as bad as he was, or this is a radical agenda that is increasingly brazenly we get to do what we want. We get to pack the courts, we get to target our political opponents, and we get to use violence. And they're serious,
Well, and again, it's all about connecting the dots because it's, there's often a thin veneer of plausible deniability, right? Where it's someone's like, well, I didn't say that. I just said that we should look into X. And then somebody else said, oh, well, we should show up. And I said we should peacefully protest. And then someone else said, well, as a matter of policy, we don't support immigration enforcement. We're not sending cops, not because we want the cops to get hurt, but because of the immigration policy, right? So all the dots are out there and they're not connected. And then it's like, well, how come no cops showed up to help ICE? How come this riot got out of hand? And now suddenly someone's dead. And I think that connecting those dots is really, really, for your point, for the messaging is key. Because otherwise, I think we've seen this play out over and over and over again. What they do is they'll say, like, well, these are all unconnected events, right? Who can say why they didn't send police on day one of the riots? It's just, state policy. What do you want me to do? I'm a senator. I don't dictate state policy. I'm not in charge of that. And because it's amorphous like this, then all of a sudden it looks like there's nothing going on, or at least they can spin it that way. And I think we have to get better at tracking that down.
I totally agree. Let's do these. If you can, we'll do the super chats before you leave.
Yeah. Absolutely.
On your side, Lord of the Nerd. By the way, if you have any more to get in, we promise we'll get to them here. Lord of the Nerd's $5 says, don't let Dev, Sleepy Dev is what he goes by next, short fat at taco. I didn't know that's who that was. I've heard both of those names, but I didn't put together. Anyways, off the hook, as such an item to moderate in order to get Dev to openly say his friends can't be trusted to do it. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
I have noticed that he is the type of person that likes to make comments maybe from the sidelines. So I'd be happy to debate him on the issue. Happy to do it. So.
I have no issue debating Dev. He talked shit about me, so I said you don't want this smoke, and then Wick was like, well, why don't you debate this totally random thing? And I was like, I'm not. You don't get to invent prompts for me. Like, I've got enough going on.
Yeah, I don't know. James $10 says, how do they make DC a state? This is on your side as well. Precedent is an amendment had to be passed to give DC electoral votes. DC doesn't need representation when they have the immense privilege of living in the imperial capital.
I was stunned when I looked into this recently to learn that recognition of a state, generally speaking, just requires passing a law. That's all it really requires. Getting DC special privileges that don't come to a state, that's like kind of like a different. I guess, maybe that was a different process, but yeah, if they wanted to recognize Puerto Rico, DC, I think they could probably do it with a, 51 seat in the House and a bare majority in the Senate, bare majority in the House, if they were willing to break the filibuster, which of course Pisco says that they should.
Dirk Diggler, $5 says, hey Ryan, congrats on your debut in Modern Day Debate. You're the man.
I think there have been some haters, but I'm pleased with how that went on the whole. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you.
Then we got Devil's Raspberry, $2 on your side, says, a capable adult could adapt and overcome. Leave the poor guy alone. I mentioned this, like, Pisco's a weird guy. I'm able to do this. Maybe other people aren't. Because I grew up in an overwhelmingly right-wing conservative environment, like rural Pennsylvania here, though most people aren't political that I was friends with, but culturally they're right-wing conservative, like Christians, right? When I went to do collegiate debate, everybody was radical left. So I learned to separate a lot of people's politics from, the person. When we met Pisco at Ward, he's a perfectly fine guy to hang around with. I have nothing ill to say about, like, it wasn't like he was like some arrogant asshole, like, fuck you, I need a better chair, or, it wasn't anything like that. It was perfectly reasonable. By the way, same with Anna Kasparian, the same with Erudite. Everyone was very pleasant to be around. Like, just to be clear. Now, the worldview sucks. My thing with Pisco, we'll see what you think of this. The best conversations I have with Pisco are when he's not trying to be like uber, like fucking yes or no, yes or no. And not only are they the best conversations I have, but they're the ones that I find him to be most persuasive. When he's actually trying to be nuanced and like, well, wait, and not being super debate bro mode. But as soon as he gets like, when he knows that like the Destiny audience is watching or something like that, then he gets the chip on his shoulder. And it's just, I've told him this before. I'm like, I don't know, maybe it is who he really is, but I feel that like he's trying, I think he sees that a certain personality worked for Destiny. And so he adapts that. And for me, I think I personally feel it costs him, because I think if he was more likable and like affable, and which I think's maybe more close to his actual personality, I think he would do very well in this space. Not that he's not doing well. I'm not saying that, but that's just my opinion. So I don't dislike Pisco as a person, I guess was the long way of saying that, but it's still fun to make fun of him.
I mean, my 2 cents here is like, I have been very willing to have like intellectual jousting matches with Pisco about like the immunity decision, or is originalism good or bullshit, or, like these kind of topics that I think are in the vein of like, we're going to have this discourse. Recently, he's taken a maximalist approach to his politics. And I don't know why that's happened, but he's adopted a set of principles and proposals that basically are the kind of like the black pill in the trenches, street warfare. We just have to crush the other side under our boot until they're dead approach. And I'm on the other side. Like, I don't want to have tyranny imposed on me by the left, right? That's a little different than it's like, hey, let's talk as lawyers about the immunity decision, whether it's good. So like, I agree with you. I got along. I've always gotten along with them in person. I've always gotten along with them offline. But it is a change of pace when you switch your messaging from "we disagree" to "I want to tyrannically impose my will upon you." That's a little different.
What's funny to me is Pisco's audience would say that I'm radical. I don't think I'm radical at all. I just am like, I accept you guys' framing and just say we should use the same framing. But I haven't called for packing the courts. I haven't called for adding states. I haven't called for like near any of the shit that they're calling for, violating FARA, I haven't called for any of that. I'm just like, look, if you're going to arrest Donald Trump for campaign finance violation, right? Okay, in the exact same election, Hillary Clinton, the FCC said she did the exact same thing. Improperly filed paperwork to Perkins Coie, her law firm, as legal expenses when it was really opposition research and campaign. All I'm saying is enforce the fucking law. If we're going to go after Manafort for FARA violations, quite clearly Hunter Biden committed FARA violations. Go after it. And for that, I'm radical. Meanwhile, the people that say that that's radical are like, add 4 seats to the court, end the filibuster. I've advocated against ending the filibuster. End the filibuster. Add 2 new states. Give the legislator, punishment powers over the... And I'm like, how do these fucking people think I'm radical? And that's just it. Before they jump in and say, Ryan says Pisco's radical, but he does a show with Rob. Yeah, and by the way, Ryan pushes back on what he thinks that I do and think goes too far and it's too radical. Pisco, on the other hand, tries to have this veneer. For example, Pisco says it is radical would be not packing the court. That's his explanation. It is radical to not pack the court. That's where he's at.
Yeah, and also, like, it's so funny, too, because it's like, I get endless shit for not being radical enough. Like, if anyone thinks it makes my life easier online to not run as far right as possible on every issue, you're out of your fucking mind. Like, do you know how easy it would be for me to pull better numbers if I was willing to like say certain things or run all the way to the extreme on certain positions? When you're in the middle on an issue, you just get shit from both sides. That's how that goes. So it doesn't make my life easier, but it does disappoint me from Pisco in particular, because he really should know better. He should. He's not a dumb guy. He's a lawyer. He should know the gravity of what he's proposing, and I think he does. And that has changed my opinion of him, because it's hard for me to think that he's unaware of the consequences of the things that he's proposing were they to come true. Right. And like that makes me, that saddens me, to be honest with you, because it's like, shit, like you said, I've gotten along with him in the past. Like I had a beer with him where he seemed like a good guy, but he's proposing something that is overtly tyrannical. And I have to reconcile that now.
Okay. Rob Ulocks on your side, $20 says, Ryan, fellow attorney here, DPA criminal defense. Cannot thank you enough for your recent legal dismantling of Destiny and Pisco, as it was long, long overdue. Hats off to you, sir. But Rob was correct in not conceding. Yeah, yes. It is like the optics of like saying like people don't look at it like that, right? Like they look at it like, oh, you said you concede, therefore you concede, and it's like, well, no. Like my point is, I gave this example, like one of the bigger debates that maybe a lot of both of our audience saw was when Andrew Wilson debated Destiny on what is the definition of insurrection. And so Destiny goes first, and he's like, he gives the Bowden-Paulson like 4 criteria. And Andrew's like, sure, fine, okay. And he's like, so you say I win? Yeah, whatever. But you realize that means like everything's an insurrection? Huh? Yeah, I mean, that's like if 2 hippies get pissed about a weed law and shove a cop, that's an insurrection. Well, yeah, I guess. Okay. Yeah. So sure, you could call it that. I don't give a shit. And like it'd be the same as like me and you're debating, well, how tall does someone have to be before we consider them tall? And you're like, I think 2'5". And I'm just like, I mean, I don't know what my definition is, but that's clearly too much. Right? And people are like, but you lose the debate, Rob. That you had to give your definition. I'm like, I don't really give a shit. I'm just saying Ryan's definition's horseshit because it would mean everyone's tall. And that's what's the utility of the term then if everything encompasses. That's sort of what you were doing. You're like, look, I'm just saying that your real position's what we should be debating. I don't give a fuck about this prompt in the sense, but it's not like you're saying I don't give a fuck about the prompt in the sense that you're like, I'm here to argue something completely different. You're saying I give a shit in the prompt insofar as court packing is being discussed as a real position by Democrats and by you, and this is your real position. That's what we should be arguing. Not you pretending to have a minimalist position so that you get your toe in the door and then going off screen and saying, if I win that minimalist position, that means...
Well, I mean, Pisco show up is like, I would like to debate whether or not this Trojan horse is aesthetically beautiful. And I'm like, I'd like to point out that it's full of soldiers that want to kill me. And he's like, oh, well, it may be full of soldiers that want to kill you. And I concede that I, in fact, put the soldiers there, but let's not talk about that. At a certain point, you got to be like, no. Like I said this in my stream last night. I really don't care about the intellectual jousting in that way. Like, I have nothing to prove to Pisco intellectually. Like, I have nothing to prove to him in terms of law or legal career. Like, what matters to me is whether or not people understand the gravity of what is being proposed. Like that this is the flaw in the Death Star where the whole shit blows up. Like, this is a structural flaw in the Constitution, and we have to, you have to be aware of the gravity of this. And I think that, because that's my priority, I feel really great about how it went. Though I take your point about the technical nuance of debating.
And if you're interested in that, I'll be debating him. I think 8:30 p.m. Wednesday on my channel. I think I've never interacted with Avi Bitterman.
Avi, he's a good guy,
but I've heard that he's fair, so I have no problem with that. I think he's going to moderate the debate. It'll be interesting because it gets very meta when half of the topic is did Brian do good in the debate or do bad, which means that we're going to have to. So I can already see.
Rob, remember, if you say the following words, I don't give a fuck about whether Ryan did badly, I concede, I will give you $100 the next time we stream.
Listen, that's funny. But it'll be, I'll have fun with it anyways. Yeah. I'll assure you this, like, I would say that just to get the $100 and then backtrack, but
no backtracking, motherfucker.
I'm not conceding shit to Pisco. Nothing. Guarantee it. So you can take that to the bank. I'll concede you're an asshole, Pisco. That's about it. Blasterbot, on your end for $50. Thank you, man. We really appreciate you guys' support. We really do. I know we're going long tonight. As long as you don't care, Ryan, I don't.
No, I'm good to go.
Yeah. But honest to goodness, I'll just take a moment, and I'm sure Ryan will speak to this as well. Y'all's support is amazing. I think this show's getting more popular. Ryan's channel's growing far faster than mine ever did. I look for him to meet up or surpass me in the near future. And I know both of us appreciate not just the financial support, but any likes and follows or chats that you guys are making. It really does mean a lot. And we notice. So thank you all so much, which is why we definitely want to try to read at least all the super chats because it really makes the show better. It really does.
It really does. And also, like, beyond the financial support, what it does to the algorithm is kind of crazy. Like, if you think about, Rob, like when you and I even started doing this show, we weren't getting the viewership we're getting tonight. Yep. And we weren't getting the downstream views when the algorithm promotes your video. Yeah, shout out Black Elk for the good edits. But it really does make an enormous difference. The community's been really supportive of this show, so we appreciate it from the bottom of the heart.
Yep. And Plasterbot always gives us some nice dino facts. Says there was a sauropod hiatus after the Jurassic in the fossil record of Europe and North America. After some African sauropods migrated to Europe, they only got small ones. In America, we got Alamosaurus, which was massive, coming up from Mexico.
He donated to me last night and said, it was like one of my favorite donors of all time. He was like, I really don't want to care about politics. I want to be in my backyard drinking bourbon, eating barbecue, and reading dino facts. I hate that the left has made me care about politics. And I was like, perfect.
You want to know?
It's the most conservative post of all time.
You want to know who my hero is in politics? This will get me in trouble for saying in politics because it's not a politician. My hero is Clarence Thomas. And it's not just because I think he's my favorite justice, right? It's because of his hobbies. Like, I don't know if you knew this. Clarence Thomas is a big RV man. Like him and his wife, as soon as like, you know, they get time off,
summer,
like, let's get in the RV and we're cruising around the country. That's me. That's all I want. To end the internet, like just cancel my internet subscription, right? Buy some old DVDs and some old movies and TV show I like just to watch if I want to watch something entertainment. Have zero connection to the internet and just drive around with my wife and son in an RV the rest of my life. That's it. If politics got sorted out tomorrow and I had enough money, I'd be like, thank you very much. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending how you look at it, I don't think we're anywhere near this stuff getting sorted out to that degree. But that would be my dream. So I sympathize with Plasterbot there.
Yeah, it's a good dream.
FDNY, thank you so much. $5 on Ryan's side says, what do you think the probability is that they have a current undercover operation within the groups now that they've been labeled terror groups?
God, I hope so.
I mean, they did it to J6ers. And it's a question of how much do you trust, you know, formerly Pam Bondi, Kosh Patel, and now Todd Blanche. It's
a question of competence is what it comes down to, which is unfortunately has not been the strong suit of the criminal justice division. But
yeah, I would put the chance at 40%. Or rather, actually, I'd put it higher. I'd put it at 75%, but only at 40% that it results in like a serious conviction. But I would bet that they have someone there. It's just, what are they going to do with it? That's the real question, right?
I mean, do you think they have feds who can like blend in? Like, you know,
wearing the khakis.
Well, I have this like, I have this, you know, in my head, it looks like this, you know, like imagine like Owlish and like 5 of her friends are sitting around, you know, planning some awful shit. And then like Andrew Wilson walks up in a blazer like, hey, I'm one of you. Would you like to let me in your group? Like, you know,
down with the patriarchy. Yeah, right. It always one of my favorite memes is the Steve Buscemi with the skateboard. Like, hey, fellow kids, like yeah, rolling up like that. It's good shit. Who knows? Maybe think about this. Maybe Pisco's a Fed. Ooh. Right, and he's just playing a game. Really, as soon as we're done here, we're going to be on the phone with him and Todd Blanche. Like, all right, would we find out, Pisco? You're in with these people. Philip Coggins, $5 says the black pill person in me wants the correspondence dinner guy to get acquitted by a DC jury. That'd be huge. Like as far as just putting an exclamation point. I mean, Tyler Robinson.
I mean, this would prove that like. This would just have to be just rank incompetence or jury nullification, right? Because like, there's no question he's guilty. Like it's on the whole thing's on video. So yeah, that would be huge.
I mean, I don't know. It is especially like think about all of you at home. You're all in the same position as me, unless it's like Mr. Ubercross or potentially Criminal Sean or the nice gentleman that just sent a super chat. But most of you aren't lawyers. But I assume if you're a lawyer, I would guess 95% of lawyers at some point got into it because of a theoretical respect for the job, right? And so it would have to be immensely heartbreaking to see something like that. Like in a way that's different from the rest of us normies to be like, fuck, like that's really bad for sort of this thing that I respect, where it's like even that, and it's like, so I can imagine it's hard to even entertain the thought because you're like, man, that's so bleak that it's like, I don't know where we go from there, you know?
Well, and I mean, we don't need to do your debate prep, but that's the Bork of it all, right? Where the law became political.
Yep. Megamax 50 on my end. Thank you, sir. Says, it's my birthday. Yay. Happy birthday. Amazing. Also, easy way to deal with these riders. Big grab them and then place them all into SC. only offer harsh plea deals to them. As we saw with the January 6ers, the right to a fair and speedy trial is actually BS. I hate YouTube censorship. I agree. Solitary confinement's what SC was. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you go through, if you listen to someone like Shipwreck Demon and the people that he represented and some of the troubles that many of them had and just how, like, unfair, just little shit like withholding exculpatory evidence or law enforcement testifying in ways we could later see from body cam footage that they didn't hand over shows that little details that they were saying were untrue. Like, the January 6 people really got railroaded. And they're already in a tainted jury pool, which basically all the judges were like, we don't give a shit. We're not going to accept that. We're going to make sure that the trials occur here. You know, I'll make Ryan's argument for him to an extent. Is it really fair that we say, well, because they got railroaded, that we railroad other people? You know, I don't know. I don't look at it quite that way, but I get the idea. It's, I guess, put it this way. Pisco always says this to me when I debate him. Is the only remedy for a FARA violation against Trump that Trump be allowed to use, or I'm sorry, that Trump be allowed to do FARA violations? I'm so sorry. FARA is not the word I'm looking. FISA is the word I'm looking for. When they do FISA, they got illegal FISA warrants against Trump. So is the only remedy he be allowed to do it to them? Or do we say, yeah, that's bad, but we don't say that you're allowed to do something illegal back? By the way, I agree with that. I would not cheer for illegal FISA warrants. It's an interesting thought. I don't know. I sympathize, though, Megamax.
Well, hey, Rob, just pack the courts, make it all legal. Fuck it, right? This is the problem, right? It's like,
we'll see. We'll see if this comes up Wednesday. We'll see.
We'll see.
Devil's Raspberry, $5 says FBI DHS, domestic violent extremist, person in the U.S. without foreign influence, furthering political social goals through unlawful force, dangerous to human life. Yeah, but what do you do with that? Like, I guess you can investigate. You could subpoena, I would assume, but is that itself a criminal statute?
Yeah, that sounds like a definition. I'm not sure what the crime is.
But I agree. FDNY, $5 says, well, the news buried the story of the dude throwing a brick at CBP's windshield in LA last summer. Never heard about it again. Yeah, that's one of the things I think that's worth criticizing, and I'll see what your thoughts on this, right, is. Let's say they do. They said they announced a couple dudes they arrested, right? Don't you think from just a public relations standpoint that it would behoove the Trump administration to routinely update, here's where the trial's at now, right? Yeah. Here's, like, if they get a conviction, here was the conviction. Here's how many years. You know, I think that they should start, because that's what happens. If these people are punished, it just seems to go into the ether.
We should start a tracker.
Yeah, we should.
Like, we just start like a spreadsheet and be like, okay, like once a month, we just like update it and be like, where's everybody at? That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Because I think like a lot of the time this stuff just gets swallowed into the fucking ether. Like I not only had that been buried, I had totally forgotten about it until I read that super chat. Like I had no recollection until suddenly he reminded me. So yeah, we should totally start tracking this stuff.
It is so unbelievable how fast the news cycle. I'll bet, like, one of the things I used to do, and I need to do it more, I just take, like, let's say we're in, June 1st here. I'll just be like, we're going to do in the stream today. Let's go see what I was talking about last June 1st. You know how many times you do that and you're like, holy shit, I completely forgot about this thing. Like, until we were talking about the dude in D.C. Yeah, we had an assassination attempt like last month. Remember that? Out of the news. Completely just out of sight, out of mind. Like it didn't happen. And then like 2 months from now, you'll be having a debate with someone about violent extremism. And you're like trying to come up with this. You'll hit one or two of them. And then it's like, oh shit, when you go back, it's like, this is sort of what I said. It happens so often that it just becomes normal. It becomes normalized. It's like, so yeah, that the dude that throws the brick, right? Oh yeah, forgot about that. And I don't know. Then what we all rely on, we all do this. We rely on like someone else that's collecting this info. And so we'll go to CISA, or some organization, Southern Poverty Law Center that'll say, actually, you're mistaken. It was the right that commits all the violence. And you're like, oh, I thought I remembered seeing all that shit, but I guess it wasn't.
Oops, my bad.
Zach Gelpy on my end, $5. Thank you so much. Says we need to be on the offense with these people, just like the U.S. versus the Soviet Union. Mutually assured destruction is a good policy. That's where I'm at. Again, I would not advocate going beyond what has been done. I'm not even advocating going 100% in most areas of what's been done. Like, I'm not advocating for FISA violations. However, I do think that it needs to be made clear that once you say this is the new norm, this is legal, this is the way to go about things, that instead of pushing back and saying there's dangers to that, I think we continue to do that. But then like, for example, like I heard this as a strategy. What do you think of this? Donald Trump should come out today and say, all right, I'm pressuring senators to pass a bill that enshrines the Supreme Court at 9 justices. And here's my suggestion for the 4. I'm simultaneously suggesting packing with 4 people, right? In other words, I don't want it packed, but either get the Senate on record right now saying, no, it has to be 9. Or if not, fair enough. Here's my 4, right? Now, I'm not advocating for that, but I understand the gamesmanship of that. It's like, look, you can't have it both ways. If you guys are going to tell us, like, we swear we're not going to do this, we'll pass a law saying that it has to be 9, fair enough, that's what we want. But if not, if the standard's going to be, now we're allowed to pack the court, then why shouldn't we say, okay, right now we have the means to do it, let's pack the fucking court then?
Yeah, I mean, I would love, because the thing about court pack is you need a constitutional amendment to fix the number at 9, and you're never getting an amendment for shit right now, like, let's be honest. But that's actually what we need. We need there's a constitutional loophole. We need an amendment to close the loophole. That's actually what is necessary. And I would love, I don't know about the threatened court pack, but I would love for Trump to come out and like go on offense on this and be like, I think we should have an amendment.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And let's have these people go on record saying they don't want one. Let's see who thinks that there should be court packing. I'd love to have votes called on this. I'd like to see whether the Democrats are actually going to oppose this sort of thing and get on the record. Like, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I actually, I'm against the idea of Trump even suggesting, well, then I'll pack the court. But I totally agree with you. I think Trump and not just Trump. This is something that I'd like to see, like, a Republican in Senate just come out with this. Like, like you could picture like, fuck it, Thomas Massey. What are you up to in the Alaska war? Right? Like, come out and recommend, hey, we got an amendment. How about this? He's got other shit in his plate. But you see what I'm saying? You're right. Someone should do this. And Trump should be like, yeah, I co-sign on that. We
should absolutely close this loophole before it gets misused, because it's going to get misused.
And it won't. Like you said, there will not be an amendment passed on this, but get it on record.
Yeah.
Right? Because they are going to employ the Carvel strategy. For example, I see Bisco just put this out as I was streaming. It showed up on my feed, right? He says there must be a debate going on around. Both Lander and Goldman explicitly support court expansion in their debate. Keep pushing. The Pondering, this is fantastic news. Josiah and I will continue pushing the Democratic Party for this needed policy. Tomorrow at 8:30, we're live with Wick debating it again.
See, so I mean, they're propagandizing for the destruction of the country.
Right. And then they'll be like, why should we have to debate what we really think? That's ridiculous. Why would that be part of the debate? What we really believe? Absurd. Why would we debate that? And so that's what I'm talking about, though. And it's not just them. But you are going to have people like James Carville that's going to tell these people, well, don't say it out loud, right? Don't run on it. Just keep it secret. So one of the things you could do if you're a Republican is say, well, let's get a vote. Let's get it on record, right? We're pushing an amendment. Let's see who votes no. And, hey, there may even be some Republicans that vote no. And shame on them as well. I would call them out as well.
Yeah.
But it's like...
I like this idea. That's a good idea.
I like the term you came up with there, load-bearing norm, because this is what me and you were talking about the debate, and it was like, I put it in a more clunky way, which is like, well, there's thresholds to this, right? Like, there's the norm of like, we shouldn't gerrymander. And once we start gerrymandering, well, what's the correct, just response to that? Well, gerrymandering. Right? Like, if you're going to do it, we're going to do it. I get that. And I don't like any of it. And fuck the Republicans and fuck the Democrats that do it. I don't particularly care for it. Right? But that's what it is. But that's something we can survive, as you said. Like, prosecuting your political opponents. I mean, I remember, naive as I was, now I think Nixon was railroaded. But I remember when Gerald Ford died. I don't know when that would have been. The first thing I heard about it in the news, Ford was known for pardoning Nixon. And I was like, yeah, fuck all that. Did Nixon break the law? And it was very naive, because when you look back, you're like, because what Ford understood and the people around him understood was, once you break that glass, that's a dark road. Once we decide that that's what's going to happen, that's very dark. So whatever we could do, the dude's out of power, let's just shuffle them all along, right? And leave it at that. Because once we break that, and that's what happened. When they did this to Trump, not once, but what are we, 5, 6, 7 times and counting? Charges that they tried to bring against Trump, different cases in different jurisdictions. Once you start down that path, okay, you know what the predictable response is going to be. Okay, then when Trump gets in power, he's going to say, fuck you, I'm going after you. And now I hear all these people that were silent when people like me and people like you were like, this is a fucking horrible idea. Now when they were silent, and now when Trump goes back, they're like, well, I don't like this one bit. I'm sure you don't. I mean, I don't know what to say. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You know, if it was, had this shit never happened to Trump, and Trump just came out and was like, we're going to go after Fannie Willis, I'd have been like, that's fucked up. But seeing as how she committed the very crime that she was going after Trump for, fair game. The bar for starting an investigation is very low. No one's above the law.
Yeah, and that's why I use the phrase norm-bearing, like load-bearing norm, because some of these norms you can live without. Like, you know, there was a norm about the way politicians spoke, and Trump just destroyed it. And now politicians speak totally differently.
Yep.
I'm adjusting. It's a little weird, but I think we can live without that norm, right? But other norms, like, you know, for example, can you totally abolish the Constitution through court packing? You might need that one. You know, there are some norms that, you know, like you go down that road and you just go, God, like, how do we, if we doom spiral on this one, how do we ever get out of it?
I don't know what the answer. I mean, I know what the answer is. It's not a good one. If this happens, there's 2 outcomes that I could, well, 3, I guess, right? The most likely outcome is the Democrats rig it to where it's almost impossible within a generation to stop them from having power. And the makeup of the country will be made so radically different by then, it'll hardly matter. So that's option 1. Option 2 is Republicans get back control and it just spirals out of control. And the only way then, once they pack, and the eventually one side's going to be like, we no longer respect the rulings from that body because it's been made a joke. And then quite literally, what's likely to happen there is only one of 2 situations, which would be 2 and 3. Situation 2, which is the best outcome, is somehow cooler heads come together and they're like, this is fucking crazy. We need to pass an amendment. Let's see what happens. I would put the likelihood of that very low. And option 3 is an open civil war.
Yeah, I mean,
that's it. That's literally where you would be as far as I could see it.
If they packed the court and then someone was like, what odds would you put on a state attempting to secede from the union in the next like 30 years? I'd be like
90%.
Yeah, I bet that off. Like, I actually do think the spiral on that would get so out of hand that you'd probably have like Texas being like, no, we're done. Like,
and the incentive, once they do this, by the way, the incentive is not going to be like, well, let's put judicial minimalists.
No.
Like they're going to put people with the intent of bringing up seminal issues such as free speech, the Second Amendment, abortion, right? That's going to be the intent. Like, they're going to, like, amnesty for illegals, open border policies. It's going to be fucking crazy. That's what they're going to do.
Rob, those 3 liberals who voted that Colorado couldn't take up Trump off the ballot, they weren't left wing enough. They, you know, I think that I would be put on with very seriously left leaning type justices who would reshape the Constitution dramatically and perhaps irrevocably. It would be a disaster.
Yep. So that's the stakes. That's where we're at. Lord of the Nerds on your end, $5 says, if people can't find redress from government, they will find it for themselves. The U.S. body politic has been whistling past the grave since BLM riots. I know, and it's something that I honestly am trying for both the sake of the left and the right. And you hear people say this all the time, like bigger people than us, like at least on X and stuff. Like you'll hear like Mike Cernovich or Jack Posobiec, and this is a truism that they say that's like, if you think Trump's bad, the guy that comes after Trump's the guy you should be scared of. Because if Trump, who was basically a 1996 Democrat, if he's considered too unbearable, what happens is once you lock Republicans out of power for a certain amount of time, and then a leader, whether he be an elected political leader or just a cultural leader, comes up, that dude's going to be Franco. That dude's going to be like, I don't give a fuck. We're going to use the force. There won't be conversations of court packing. There'll be conversations of jail packing. Like, fuck you. Like, you're a liberal. We don't like you.
Well, this is what happens when you break the fundamental load-bearing norm, right? Like, because then it's like the only, what's that phrase? Like, you can vote communism in, but you got to shoot it out. Like, it's one of those, like, at a certain point, if the system can no longer bear the weight of all the intrusion upon it, it will just implode. There are certain structural pieces that we have to preserve if we want to have any chance of preserving the country the way we want it to be.
And I know I might be seen as more radical than you, but I say this in part of my heart. I don't want that.
No.
I don't want that person to come. I don't want, like, there's this old, like, sort of, I don't know if saying's the right word because I'm not going to get the saying, but there's this old thought that, like, you have, like, blowhards like me that never served in the military that'll be quick to be like, yeah, fuck it, go to war. And then you have the dudes that did, that realize how hellish it is, that are like, hey, man, before you talk about how badass it is and shit like that, like, I actually was there, and it's grotesque. It's terrible. I think a lot of, like, the acceleration is, bring it on. I don't know that they realize how bad shit could get. Like, it could get real dark. And, you know, sometimes I wonder if those people have children. Because I'm not trying to have my son grow up in a world where it's like, you know, we literally have states seceding, and we have, like, that could get real ugly real fast. So I'm trying to avoid that. And I know you're trying to avoid that. And it would be nice if we had some people on the left that were making that attempt as well. John Fetterman? Anyone else?
Who they're going to primary out of existence.
Yep. In my state.
For exactly that. They're going to primary him out of existence because he's been one of the few voices on the left who's been willing just to, like, make kind of like the obvious concessions where he's like, they're like, oh, we got Maduro. He's like, well, haven't we been trying to do that for a long time? That seems like a good thing. And he's getting castigated for it. He's going to be primaried for it. So,
yeah, I mean, the real sin is, by the way, the specifics don't matter. Fetterman sins just saying, like, some of this shit Trump's doing, I think your criticisms are out of control, right? You guys are getting too extreme. That's it. That's the real, how dare you? How dare you even come to that conclusion? You know, we didn't talk about it much, but Graham Plattner, you know, the dude with the totem conf tattoo and all that shit.
You know, Rob, if only there had been a warning sign that there was something off about this guy's character. Because, you know, it's taken me completely by surprise, Rob, that he has all these allegations about him. Because there was no sign. There was just
someone should write a book, right? Where it's like when someone has poor character, they are like have a symbol on them that illustrates that poor character. Because then we would be able to see if someone just like on their chest had a symbol that illustrated about that person, you know, if only. But unfortunately, you know, our media, I'm sure they would have looked into it and been very vocal against something like that. So, oh, well, we could wish, you know, those things. But one of the narratives you're hearing is like, well, we have to bite the bullet with Plattner because, you know, the extremism that he's running against. Susan Collins. Who is like the most liberal and moderate conservative. Like, it blows your mind. You're like, if they could say this about Susan Collins, who do you think possibly comes after Trump? Because you'll hear them say all the time, they act like, now granted, they're getting way more extreme with Trump. And Trump brings some of it on, don't get me wrong. But the truth is, there's no turning it down. Like, there's only turn the volume up for them going forward. You're not going to get like they'll say like this, oh, here's a picture of Mitt Romney on stage with Obama. And I miss the days of when we had like astute gentlemen that were running. If somehow Trump falls on his fucking face, right? And it goes back to the party of Mitt Romney and he wins the primary. Do you really think that they're going to be like, all right, finally, we could stop, you know, the extremism? And they'll be like, no, in many ways, Mitt Romney's worse than Trump. Don't forget he had binders full of women. He wants to be black people in chains. He just hides it behind a veneer of a nice suit, you know, and the Mormons are cultist anyways. And it'd be the same shit, so.
I mean, it's wild out there, man. It reminds me, by the way, you got to remember, part of me just has to remind myself that like the average voter is not these psychos online. Because like the soy pill at one point said on one of these WIC panels that if if he had to personally deliver CP to Graham Plattner, because it turned out Graham Plattner was a CP enjoyer, that he would gladly do it to defeat Susan Collins. And it's like, it's like, well, it's like, okay, like if you're that guy, then we're already into the friend enemy distinction. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that means that we're in the maximalist posture. But I'm just, my optimist part of me has to assume that like that's not the average voter, and that's not
yeah, I mean
step. Like that's a psycho online thing.
That's how you must proceed forward. Yeah. Lord of the Nerds on your end again, 5 says the state abdicating responsibilities instead of the federal isn't a good accounting for the abdication itself. The state is criminal. Well, there's been there's clever things that I've heard, such as stop providing federal agents and monies for customs in air flights in states like New Jersey or Minnesota, etc., that refuses to cooperate. And I do think that Trump should be more aggressive as being like, well, if you refuse to cooperate with the feds, legally you're allowed to do that, but legally we're allowed to reciprocate with how much we're willing to aid you with certain things, you know?
Well, so, I think there needs to be some pressure and there needs to be some visibility. And the reason I brought that up is not to say that it doesn't matter. What I was trying to point out is that there's actually stuff the federal government just can't do. And that's why, Rob, I think we should start tracking this shit, because I think the only way to draw attention to this would be to have the data and kind of present it to people and be like, look at these motherfuckers. This was like 40 arrests, zero charges, all state, right? And New Jersey like this, you know, Minnesota like this, and maybe the data comes out the other way, and then we say, okay, it turns out it wasn't as bad as we thought. But like, I think we would have to track it, because there's no way to remember. It fades so fast.
Crazy. All right, super chats. Mega Max, $10 on my end. Thank you. Says, we've already had a breakdown in the U.S. jury trial system in the U.S. O.J. Simpson, the black juror, said they knew he was guilty, but it was revenge for Rodney King. It's been over. It's just catching up now. That's certainly true in cases, in individual cases. Is it becoming more common? It seems that way. There is, what's his name? With Singapore, former PM of Singapore, I think it was, that abolished jury trials there. And he famously said that once you start to get enclaves of minority, people no longer vote in the interest of innocent or guilty. They vote in the interest of their perceived in-group, racial in-group. And the data seems to back this up in the United Kingdom and the United States to some degree. Now, that it's not 100%, obviously, but I don't know. I don't know what you do about that. You know, in the United Kingdom, I saw someone talking about this, and they were like, maybe we should abolish jury trials. Well, from the perspective of a right-winger in the United Kingdom, you sure about that?
Yeah,
because actually, those judges are even worse, right, when it comes to convictions of things like hate speech and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It's tough. We can talk about it for days and days and days.
We got to start. We got to start being a country that actually values assimilation instead of multiculturalism. Yep. That's because you can't have these. You know, like you can't have a moral people if you don't have a unified culture. That doesn't mean that people can't have their own idiosyncrasies, but there has to be, you know, like you say the Pledge of Allegiance at school. Mm-hmm. You know what the country's about. There has to be some common ground there.
Gelatinous Rube, thanks for the $5. Joseph Romano, $5. Thank you so much. Devil's Raspberry, $2, says, just interesting how leftists could legally attack LEOs. That's it. I mean, yeah. $2 again from Devil's Raspberry says, interesting how leftists can legally attack civilians. A lot of interesting things.
I noticed a theme, just some observations.
BB the Aussie on my side for $10 says, a whip song in the 90s spirit of Law and Order would be in order for 26. I'll see what I could do. We'll see what we could do in that.
I know you love the whip segment so much, Rob, that
anything
to extend it. Anything to extend it.
It'd be like this: like your primary source of income's like the law. My primary source of income is streaming, right? So imagine that like you're a successful lawyer. But it's just not paying the bills. Like, and you're helping people and stuff, and you love your job. But the only thing that pays the bills is like, I don't know, like the most petty Jerry Springer shit. And every day you're like, I hate this so much, but the clients are paying. So you're like, It's like the same guy that comes to your office. I want to sue this guy. This bubblegum machine only gave me half a piece of bubblegum, the son of a bitch. And you're like, okay. Like, that's what it's like. It's a nightmare. But
well, we do have our versions of that, Rob. So
I know.
You're not alone. The difference is you have to do yours publicly, while everyone just watches your face during the whip songs. By the way, donate to Rob to extend the whip song segment. That's always a good time.
We got on your end, Weld QC John. Thanks so much, man. $10 says, good evening, Ryan and Chet. Just got home from teaching welding class. 10 of 14 students have passed welder qualification certification. 4 finals be done tomorrow.
Nice.
That is amazing, man. The world could use more welders. I respect my brother-in-law's a welder. I myself have put on a welding hat and welded for like 3 seconds, which I have this weird thing. I do something like that, and now I can claim I used to be a welder.
Yeah.
Technically, I put flame to metal one time,
His students are going to be laughing their asses off when all the office jobs get crushed by AI and welders are king. So it's going to be I think you're doing noble work, buddy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, man. Devil's Raspberry, $5 on my end, said right-wing vids should begin and end with replays of left-wing violence. Everyone, put them on billboards, as long as it don't risk platform TOS violation. Yeah, that's one of the things that's crazy. There's a lot of, I don't know, I stream a lot of these riots and stuff. There's a lot of copyright strikes. There's a lot of, if someone does something crazy, right, and like hit someone with a car, technically that's showing violence. So you always run the risk to even cover this shit. The left engages in behavior so regularly violent that to just live stream leftists getting together runs risk of violating TOS. Like, that's where we're at. But point well taken. Lord Lost, $5 says, no. DC not being able to become a state is already in an amendment. Puerto Rico, I thought themselves had to vote to be a state, though I know less on it. I'll claim ignorance on both. I think you're right about DC. Puerto Rico, I don't think it's as simple as them voting on it. Their own constitution may say that that's one of the conditions, but I don't think that that's they can't just vote and then they're in. It would have to be made a state.
Yeah, the Constitution requires that Congress basically take action to recognize the state. I can't speak to what the Puerto Rican law necessity would be on their side. I'm no knowledge of Puerto Rican law in particular.
Devil's Raspberry, $2 says, despite everything you said, Ryan, I still like you.
Aww.
Chop, $10 says, doesn't crossing state lines to commit a crime generally trigger federal jurisdiction, elevating standard state offenses to federal crimes? It can. I don't know that it always does, though.
It can, but also you got to keep in mind that ICE is not the FBI. ICE doesn't have jurisdiction to cover to enforce federal law generally. ICE only has jurisdiction to enforce immigration law and then Title 18, which has specific laws where, like, if they see a terrorist act, if you obstruct them, if you assault a federal officer, like these kind of like very high level generic federal crimes, they don't have the power to enforce most federal law even. They only can do very narrow things. That's why they're so much at the mercy of whether they have statey support, because they just don't have the capacity to do a lot of the stuff that regular law enforcement would be allowed to do.
Imperious Aspect of Valor, $2 on your end, says, 2 pathetic debaters. Glad I'm an actual attorney. Well, as a actual, no doubt, successful attorney, I'm sure you have more than $2 to throw around. So the next insult, if you donate 100, it would really hurt us. So Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Jason Mulgren on your end, $5 says, I thought they should enshrine the talking filibuster and threaten to blow it up if Congress refused. But too late soon.
This is actually the one, I'm not a fan of modifying the filibuster, but if you were going to modify it, this would be the way to do it. No, you actually have to talk. Just so that we'd be like, no, you can stop anything, but you have to really want it. You have to really want it. Like that.
That's what I agree. For me, I just would have enforced, on the SAVE Act, I don't want them to end the filibuster. I just want them to say, oh, okay, we're going to force a talking, which they don't have to change anything to force that. They could just say, okay, go talk, right? But they won't. And the reason they won't, if you in the audience follow my channel, you'll know the reason they won't, is because the truth is there's 5 or 6 Republicans that don't want to pass the SAVE Act. So they don't want to get rid of the filibuster or force a talking one because they're more than happy to have it there so they could look at their constituents that 90% want the SAVE Act and say, those damn Democrats. But if they have to vote and they have to say, actually, we're against the SAVE Act, that looks really bad back home. So the filibuster is a huge boon. And now Thune's probably one of them, but even if he's not, he certainly knows that that's occurring. So then he has to come up with creative excuses that the American people aren't buying of like, well, norms. And, so we would love to do this, but no, they wouldn't. That's
also, the talking filibuster is a young man game, right? Like that's back when like our founders were the senators and they were all like 26, 27, right? Can you imagine Mitch McConnell trying to run a talking filibuster?
I've seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I know what's up. It's
we're gonna have people. We have octogenarians dying in droves, which actually might solve some of the problem with the way our country's governed. So,
I'm pretty sure. Like, we get some clever shit, right? Like, we can't get Cory Booker like telling us Spartacus tales for 12 days in a row or some shit.
Yeah, and at least it'd be entertaining.
And the other thing is, like, I know Republicans are like, well, to force that, there's other important business, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but this is a huge political win. Let the Democrats get up and be forced for like 30 days in a row to talk about how black people are too dumb to get ID. I'm for that. Let's see it, right? And you just sit there if you're Republicans like, okay, keep going, right? Just let them do that. Force it, But again, they won't because they know that enough of them are against the SAVE Act anyways, so. And I believe Murkowski's already came out and said she's against the SAVE Act. So it's not even all hidden. But FDNY, thanks so much. $5 says, one of you guys should do a stream talking about the Bork and Thomas hearings and doing a deep dive. I couldn't find any documentaries. That's not a bad idea.
That's a good topic. That's a very
even
good topic.
I have a surface level knowledge. I know a little more about Clarence Thomas than Bork. But it certainly is. Like, if you, I think especially for you as an attorney, if you did not even a live stream, but if you presented like a video, like a little docuseries, like a 40-minute video on just like, here's what happened with Bork, I think it's very interesting. And I think particularly a lot of younger people have no clue. The Clarence Thomas stuff, oh my gosh. Like,
that's a really good point, because I think that there are a lot of people who don't understand how much of a norm violation that was. How it just overnight, appointing Supreme Court justices became like this nightmare political exercise, and it just didn't used to be. So that's a very good idea.
Yeah. Justin O'Dizzle, $10 says, are you serious, Ryan? Are you not ever the euphemism of assimilation? 9 out of 10 new jobs going to foreign born in the last 5+ years. How about no immigration, period?
I mean, I've been on the record that I favor immigration restrictions, and I'm glad that the Trump administration has taken steps to the contrary. That stat about 9 out of 10 over the next 5 years, I think needs to be unpacked a little bit. I don't know if you've looked at it, Rob. Someone brought this up with me. I think it was Rube brought it up with me last night. My surface level understanding is that what they're counting is like, let's say there's 7 jobs. 5 of them, though, are people retiring because they're boomers, and then whatever, and then people take those jobs. Those 5 don't count at all. They're just talking about the 2 new jobs, not the ones that are retire and replace. So I don't quite understand how the stats being calculated.
It is confusing. I think that you're right. I think that's how they do it. But yeah, I saw there's also numbers out there. I don't know if that number you quoted there, O'Dizzle, is correct. Certainly almost all of the quote jobs created under Biden, almost all of the net increase in jobs, that is absolutely true. They went to foreign born. So my guess would be, even with Trump doing a very good job, because that trend's basically reversed 180, maybe it's still 9 out of 10 if you consider Trump's past year and a half.
They probably don't know for this data.
Right. So maybe the last 5 years on record, maybe. I don't know. I will say that there was also reports of similar numbers, like 50% of jobs have gone to foreign born people in the past 20 years. So it's a trend that, but assimilation could also mean stop importing and then force the people, or not force, but puts pressure on the people already here to assimilate. Because what happens is, let's say I'm a Somalian, right? And I come in, I'm going to go to an enclave of other Somalians. But one of the things that allows that trend to continue is that we're also keeping importing more Somalians.
Yeah.
If that stops, it does put some cultural pressure. There's other stuff that could happen, obviously, but it does. So I don't take you saying we need assimilation to mean, oh, but we have to continue to mass import people. I didn't take it that way.
No. But that means that there's an obvious and common sense way to do immigration that we've done most of my life until very recently, which is like you let people, you view immigration as a tool to benefit your country. You bring people in when it benefits you, you don't when you don't. And the people who come here are expected to assimilate into our culture because it's our culture and they want to be here. And I think that this just works. The problem is it's been replaced with the idea of multiculturalism and the idea that immigration is an obligation we owe the world, not a tool to benefit our country. And I don't think that works at all. But like oftentimes because something has gone astray, there's an overcorrection, right? Where you're like, oh, because this new shit isn't working, nothing ever worked. And that I disagree with that.
Lesson Cell, last one over in Unrest says, I'm Puerto Rican. We have voted for statehood for a couple of decades now. Highest we had was 63%. Congress still didn't make us a state. Yeah, I thought it was around 60% recently polled, but yeah. The Puerto Rico argument, notice they didn't say DC, because there are unique things with DC. There was, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about this, wasn't there like some specific writings about like the founders, or at least early legal scholars, about the problems of allowing the federal central of power to have like representation like a state, like because the conflict of like what would happen if you, I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all I had.
Yeah, it's a little bit complicated because like for Puerto Rico, the Constitution says that there's like Congress can pass a law to recognize a new state, but then there's a separate clause about DC specifically, right? So there's a tension there. Like, could Congress recognize something that is a non-state district of 10 miles square that's recognized elsewhere in the Constitution? So there's a bit of constitutional tension there. So that is trickier. And also, I agree with you. Like I'm not recalling the exact paper you're referencing, but there is something very odd about a 10-mile district that's filled only with lawyers and politicians and the service professionals who feed and clothe and give gas to those lawyers, lobbyists, and politicians, becoming a state, because it in no way functions like a state. It has none of the like natural tensions and interests of a state. It's purely federal government power. So you're basically giving 2 Senate votes to the deep state, basically. That's what you'd be doing. So it is kind of intrinsically a very bad idea, despite the people claiming like, oh my goodness, representation. It's like, well, why on earth would lobbyists in DC need more power?
Yeah, I totally agree. So, all right, well, we went an hour long. I don't care. I stay up until 1 or 2 anyway streaming. So Ryan's one who has the real job. He's actually got stuff to do. So, what do you have going on the rest of the week that people could tune in to find you?
Well, I am hopefully going to take a few days off because I could use a few days off, but I'm going to be streaming on Wednesday with my buddy Philip Bunn, Eucharist, and we're going to be doing some palate cleansing intellectual conservatism. We're going to be looking and doing like deep American philosophy, American political philosophy, and feeling good about feeling good for a little bit and not doing crazy debates. And then I think, it's not confirmed yet, but I think on Saturday I'm going to go on the horseradish patch and debate your buddy Speakeasy about jury trials. So I've never.
He is not a fan of jury trials. I know that. So yeah, that'll be fun.
That's fun.
That's good. Also, he just tried to. I think he accomplished this. He did a 55-hour stream. So
Jesus.
Just look and see. I'm sure his eyes will still be heavy by Saturday. So
and then tomorrow, it's not my panel, but Gen Z Attorney and Desert Druid, who are 2 of my chatters and friends, are debating Pisco and Josiah on court packing on the Wick Show. So tune into that. Hopefully they whoop some ass.
I will be normal shows all week at 10 p.m. Eastern time on my channel. But then Wednesday, I will be debating Pisco and whether or not Ryan did bad in his debate. And on the exact same court packing prompt, Thursday I have a no prep debate. And then I'm in the process of potentially lining up a big debate Friday. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's the idea. So, well, it was a fun stream. I like when we disagree. Sometimes it's spicier. And I think that we just can't say enough about you all in the audience. If you have any suggestions, feel free to message at the bottom of either Ryan or Bai's video. Any suggestions on things you'd like to see us cover or the direction the show's going or whatever. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate your support. And yeah, until 2 Mondays from now, I'm sure we won't have anything to cover. I'm sure there'll be no legal stories. So
quiet. It will be a quiet news cycle. No drama between streamers. Nothing going on.
Yes. Great. Maybe we'll get another call in. Who knows?
Who knows? Rob, real pleasure. Everyone, have a good night.
Take it easy, man.